The meeting will then be officially called to order. Please stand as Trustee Medina leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask you for your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators, as we assemble here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. I guess she's not going to bring it. Okay. All right, we are going to first start with a public hearing on the School Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, or the FIRST report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. What we typically do in preface of any public comment is to go through a little presentation on the current financial reporting system. This is the financial accountability system for the state of Texas. FIRST is in its 17th year as a result of legislative activity. So on the next slide, actually this is just an outline of the objectives of the FIRST program. One of course, is the quality of financial management. We also want to provide public transparency and the allocation of our resources specifically for instructional purposes, and that this system is a system that is fairly and equitably evaluates the quality of the financial system of the district. So one of the requirements for School First is to publish the report. This report is actually prepared and will be posted on the district's website after tonight. We did publish the notice in the paper for this meeting. This was actually done on September 29th as required. And tonight is the meeting that we identified to discuss the ratings. And also the report does consist of additional disclosures. Those disclosures include the superintendent's contract, any reimbursements and outside compensation and gifts received by the superintendent and board members, and any significant business transactions that did occur between the school district and board members, all of which are zero. There was no compensation, gifts received, or transactions to report. The system itself this year had 15 indicators. 5 of those indicators were on a pass-fail basis, and the other 10 indicators were allocated 10 points apiece. And out of those 100 possible points, the district did score 96 out of 100, and that does put the district on as a superior rating. I will mention that the one indicator where we did not get the full 10 points, that actually was a indicator that compared the district's total liabilities to the total assets, and as typical with a fast growth district, there is a high debt. We did not clear the increase in enrollment that would shield us, if you will, from any kind of reprieve against those reports, but nonetheless, overall, the financial condition, according to FIRST, is very good. With that, I would recommend that the board listen to any public comments as it relates to the FIRST report.
Anyone signed up? No. No one at this time has signed up. Ms. Chumley, do you have any
I
comments?
just, David, on question number 4, on the actual report, there's no response. Is that something, did y'all just miss that by chance?
Number 4, the first five are pass-fail.
But on all the others, you have yes.
Yes. That would have been just an oversight.
Okay. I just didn't know if you needed to have that in there before you turn in the report.
It's probably a page break.
Okey-doke.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Freeman?
We will
I
correct.
punched it by accident.
Oh, okay. You're just testing the lights. Thanks. All right. Any more discussion? All right, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Woods.
All right. Dr. Harrell and members of the board, several things to report tonight. I want to start by thanking Lisa Turner and her staff for a really well-attended, very engaging family engagement conference. Had the opportunity to speak to the group, and really nice turnout, and that has grown year over year. They've really put on a really successful conference for Northside parents. I want to thank several folks, including John Jay PTA President Mary Roberts, the John Jay staff, and they put on a really fun national night out event every year, and I know that a couple of our trustees were able to make it that evening as well. Really nice, punctuated with student performances, and really well done event, so thanks to them as well. All of you have probably seen coverage in the media of the Alamo Promise, which is going to, with some public funding leveraged with some private funding, make available kind of last dollar funding for students in Bexar County who want to attend the Alamo colleges. I think that's a really, and it's modeled on successful programs other places. I think that's a really, it's got really strong possibilities to make a lot of difference for not only individual students, but families in our community as well. This is year one of the promise. We have 2 schools that will be participating, John Jay and Holmes, and then the goal is in year 2 to expand to all the high schools in Bexar County, which is quite a jump, quite a leap. But that's an exciting program, and I'm sure you've read some about that. Got to go visit a little bit, and I really enjoyed this event, Ag in Action, where our 4th graders from all around the district get to go visit the agriculture program at O'Connor High School. It is absolutely entertaining to watch 4th grade faces when somebody's milking a cow, right? A lot of those kids have just not had that experience, grew up in an urban setting and just haven't had that experience, but it is largely led by O'Connor kids. And it's really, really well done, really fine job. Last Saturday, we hosted the UIL Regional Marching Contest, and obviously all 11 of our comprehensive high schools performed that day. And while I didn't get to see all of them, the ones that I got to see were really fantastic, and I'm happy to report that all 11 Northside high schools received a superior rating in that adjudication. So congratulations to all of our marching band kiddos and their directors as well. Last night got the opportunity to go to the first ever pinning ceremony at the Law and Medical Services Magnet School. Got to address that group for a few minutes, and it was really just a celebration of their commitment to the school. But it was really interesting to listen to Margaret Bray, the principal there, talk about the accomplishments of the school in just 7 or 8 weeks and what the kids have been exposed to, what they've seen. It was really a nice opportunity. And lastly, have had lots of opportunities to speak to various groups about the kind of postmortem on the legislative session and where we are. And next week, we'll actually start hearings in the interim. House Public Ed meets on Monday morning, and I'll be going to give testimony about House Bill 3 and other items next week. So we are fully in the interim. Anybody who is a watcher of Texas politics knows that today was a very interesting day, and it will be fascinating to watch how today's events will impact the interim for public schools in our state.
And for those of us who Did not see newspapers or anything. What
Yeah,
happened
so-
today? Don't hold us in suspense.
So even if
Ron.
even if you read the newspaper, this actually happened after that would have been published. So around 8 o'clock this morning, the Speaker of the Texas House declared that he would not seek re-election and thus would not continue to be the Speaker after January of 2021. So it's been a pretty eventful day from a political standpoint, and everybody's jockeying to fill the power vacuum, right? All right, so let me transition to Northside Video, and some of you may have seen this story covered in popular media. This is a highlight of Northside employees using 3D printing technology to make a dream of a Villarreal elementary fifth grader to play the violin come true.
For 11-year-old Kevin Gonzalez, this is a big day.
I love music.
And while this Villarreal fifth grader loves music, he hasn't been able to play the violin because Kevin was born without his left hand.
When I found it out, it's the first day that when I asked it, my teacher, she said that if I'm interested to be in violin, and she was gonna plan some things so the librarian can help me too.
So Kevin's music teacher reached out to the school librarian, who found an entire group of people in Northside and the surrounding community who wanted to help make Kevin's dream come true.
I was not really surprised because I think people have good hearts, and when they hear the story, the first thing they were like, oh yeah, I can do that. It had to be a little bit of everybody, and we all did it to make a difference in our students' lives.
The team used a 3D printer along with a metal rod, a ratchet from a knee brace, and a bicycle part to create and build an adaptation for Kevin's arm that allows him to hold the bow needed to play the violin.
It's always cool to see a project, completed, but it's even better to see it, actually in the wild making a difference in someone's life. So I'm pretty excited.
For several weeks, the team has worked on the plans and printed several versions of the adaptation until they found one that worked for Kevin.
Oh my God, I don't even have words.
And for the first time, Kevin had the chance to hold a bow and play the violin.
I really think about that. Sometimes I get a little choked up because it's like, what a difference. He's gone 10 years without, and all of a sudden now he has this new adaptation that is going to help him.
From the time I was young, I've always tried to live my life by make the world a better place than the way that you found it. And so having the opportunity to go out and have that, one-on-one impact to really see, someone's life made better, it's fantastic. It's really great.
And for Kevin's mom,
She was crying. I was like, Mom, don't cry. And yeah, she was happy. And I'm happy too, because I never thought I was going to be able to do something like this.
that's a look at what's going on around Northside this week. Thanks for joining us for this video from Northside Media Productions. Northside is San Antonio's premier school district of choice.
There's Kleenex up here for those that need it. So, thanks to thanks to the Northside staff and a lot of community folks who committed to that project, and it will be exciting to watch Kevin be in strings in orchestra in our middle schools and in our high schools in future years, and really look forward to seeing that. That is a moment of pride in the power of public schools. With that, Dr. Harrell, that concludes Superintendent's report.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. And we will follow. You'll update us on Kevin, right? That was incredible. Are there any board members who would like to share? Mr. Medina?
Thank you very much, Dr. Harrell. So I'll just also piggyback on Dr. Woods. John Jay's and Science Engineering Academy National Night Out was a tremendous success. Not only their National Night Out, but cable, and were others that were happening, Evers, and all throughout Northside. It was a really family friendly event. And so I just wanted to make sure that our administration, our custodians, all those parents that were involved, to thank them. Also, just moving forward, I think there's been so many things that have been going on between athletic events, volleyball, moving now into other events. There's theater events that are coming up, and just get out, listen, just get involved. We really are having a lot of things going on. Also, I just wanted to say, go Astros. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Galindo, you'll keep us posted, right? But only if they're winning. Okay, thank you. Ms. Freeman?
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. I had the opportunity to go to the band UIL competition this past weekend, and certainly congratulate the students and our band directors, but also a thank you to our students and directors. And they certainly make us proud in Northside, and they represent this district so well, and what we do for fine arts. And I'd also like to thank another group of people. You know, in our high school bands, some have over 300 students, and we have 3 to 4 band directors in each band program. And just imagine moving all of those kids, getting them all in uniforms to the buses, to the stadium, and all of that. And it takes more than the 3 or 4 band directors. We have a lot of parent volunteers, a lot of unsung heroes that help make those bands move. And so thank you to all of them to make that possible. It takes a lot, props and everything else. So I want to thank the band parents and those volunteers. And there was something else I had to say, but one of those senior moments. But that was it. But it was a great competition. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And what's interesting too to watch, you know, this is not a competition, if you will, for the bands. They're adjudicated, I guess you could say, and so they're rated individually. And it's interesting to watch the band parents. A lot of them truly are band parents, or other people that, like me, that don't have kids anymore, but we go to watch and be entertained. But they clap for everybody. It doesn't matter what shirt that they're wearing. They're very proud of all of them, and they encourage the kids on the field, and that's very heartening. Thank you.
Thank you and thanks. They are unsung heroes, so thank you. And did anyone get to see the new John Marshall band trailer? Did you see it? Oh my gosh, it is incredible. So anyway, anyone else?
Check your buttons.
It says blunt. It says blunt. It is that we have a ghost on the dais. Oh, okay. All right, Miss Reed, thank you. You're messing with me.
One of the things that I was able to attend in the past month was when our Congressman Will Hurd came to Marshall High School to talk to the kids there. And he's a graduate of Marshall, and that was his choice to come back and share. And one of the things that he said that I don't think I'll ever forget was when he was a sophomore or a junior, I can't remember which, he did an internship with Southwest Research. And he said it changed his life. And it gave him a focus of what he wanted to do in his life and set goals for him. So that, to me, just equates to what we are trying to do with our students today, and we'll continue to try to have them have the learning experiences here in Northside where they can make those kind of changes. And he has been a fantastic congressman for us, and has now decided not to run again because he wants to do something that will make more difference. But one of the things he said was, there's some dumb people up there in the Congress. And the kids all laughed, but he said, you know who the best congressmen are up there? No, it wasn't congressman. It was the best CIA officers when he was in the CIA. And they all said, who? And you would think it's going to be some really small group. No, it's the ladies. And the place exploded. It was just so much fun to be there. He does a great job, and he's doing a great job for all of us here in this country. So between that and the fact that our superintendent writes great letters to Washington as well to inform them of the concerns that we have so far as our students now with getting free and reduced lunch. We have some wonderful people that represent Northside. So thank you.
Just in fairness, I signed Naomi's letter, so just to be clear.
Okay, another female, huh?
Thanks, Ms. Reed. Ms. Chumley?
I just had one thing I want to do is the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks actually have been really challenging, and so I have not had a chance to attend a lot of events. But I am so thankful that we have such an active board, and I want to thank all of y'all for being at all these different places. I think it's really important that we're out and about, and I think this board does a really good job of doing that. Steve Daniels and Ray Galindo and Brian, I wanted to thank y'all for going to the Ag in Action. I've gotten some really cute comments from the kids about all of y'all being there. Some of them weren't exactly sure who you were, but they thought that you were someone that it was very important. And so they really appreciated that y'all took the time to come out. We still have the comment that do brown cows give chocolate milk? And I'm waiting for the day when we have all our fourth graders go through and no one asks that question. It gives you an idea that there's a lot of kids that aren't really sure. And it was interesting too, the comments when they were explaining that these were production animals and would end up at HEB. And kids didn't seem to be able to put that piece together that's what we were raising was production livestock. Anyway, it was cute. I always like hearing what the kids have to say. Brian, piggybacking on what Katie said, I actually got a text today from someone that attended a conference that you were speaking at in relation to the legislature. And she said that you did an excellent job and that what they love about it is that you make it very understandable and really broke it down. So thank you for always doing that and fighting the good fight. I wanted to thank our AD staff. Stan Lang had been asked to do an Acts retreat for his church the weekend of the Brandeis O'Connor game. And so I just wanted to thank our assistant ADs who really stepped up. I heard they did a really great job with handling so many people and the traffic that we had out there. And kudos to the Northside Police as well, because I haven't heard any complaints about the way that that game was handled with so many people going, the tickets selling out so quickly. One thing I did learn about the Marshall Magnet is that they did a program, or they did a project on oaths, because the students had to create their oath. But it was really neat how they went about, they researched all these different oaths that were out there, and then they met with 3 groups, and I've gone completely blank on 2 of them, but one group were 2 attorneys who then questioned them about what it meant to take an oath and sign an oath. And anyway, I thought it was really interesting, it was kind of a 3-step project that they did in relation to that. And so I'm really excited about what we're going to be seeing out there. So, and Brian, that's probably one of the best Northside minutes that we have seen. Just amazing. So Northside TV, kudos for doing that. That was really, really touching. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Mr. Lopez?
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, I had attended most of the events already, the band and then the National Night Out. So, but yeah, I would just be repeating, but I was very impressed with the community and thanked all the, like to thank all the other elected officials that came out and, talked to the community and were present there. So that was it.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add, we had last minute notification or an invitation to go see and visit with Senator Donna Campbell, who wanted to come read by invitation to one of our 4th grade classes at Ellison. And it was Mrs. Aleo's 4th grade class, and they'd been studying the Constitution, and Bill of Rights and things like that. And so she came and she brought her book. I'm going blank on the name of the book, but she was going up the stairs. We were all actually going up the stairs, and we were greeted by another fourth grade class who sang "This Is Me," which is from The Greatest Showman, and they sang it in English and Spanish. And at the top of the stairwell, it was very emotional for her. I mean, it's always emotional for us because we love our kids so much, but to actually see her wipe away tears and then thank the kids, really, it was such a heartfelt thanks about fulfilling their dreams and how important dreams are, and she's living her dream. And then to go in to see stellar programs at Ellison, but ones that represent other stellar programs that are going on at all our schools was incredible. She saw the STEM pilot program. She went into dual language classrooms. She went into math classrooms. Well, math was going on when she was visiting. She went into BMC and was greeted by this little girl, just thought she was like a movie star. I mean, everyone should be greeted like that when you walk in the door. But she was very impressed, and our kids were so confident in their asking her questions, but also responding to her questions. She actually had them autograph her book, and then she gave them each a constitution, and she signed their constitutions for them, and gave these pearls of wisdom. And really, I think she was only supposed to be there 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops, and she was there over an hour, and then hugged everybody when she left. So I know Ellison's one of 100, 1,920 schools, but it represented all our schools. But thank you, Ellison, and thank you, Miss Alejos. What I did like about her story, Miss Alejos' story, is she started out at Ellison when it opened up as a data clerk and was so impressed with the teaching and learning that went on, she decided to go back to school, then became an instructional assistant there, and now this was her first year teacher. So first year teaching. So I mean, I can't imagine you have a senator come to your room your first year, but it was magnificent. And then Ketty was right. Representative Hurd was just stellar in talking to our kids. I was invited to be on a panel. It was a panel at Clark High School in the library. It was a book called Brave, Not Perfect, and it's written by Rashima Johnny, and actually she's the founder of Girls Who Code. It's a national organization. And after reading the book, and then there were Marisa Perez, who's on the State Board of Education, was there. Sherry Doss, who's the president of the Texas PTA. There was a math teacher and who went to MIT, and I'm going blank on her name, but she's phenomenal. Anyway, and there was a parent, Victor Pisano. And so we were sitting there and we were talking about our own experiences, bless you, with being brave, not perfect. And as I was telling my story, I figured out why I was invited, but because they were introducing us as, and here's some people who are comfortable with imperfection. And I go, okay, is my face next to that picture, that quote? I mean, so anyway, but it was a wonderful discussion, and there were teachers and young ladies there. And it's an incredible book, but the passion in which the author writes our kind of quest to familiarize everybody with the fact that imperfection is okay, and we're always getting there. And some of Carol Dweck's growth mindsetness was in it too. But it was an incredible experience being there as well. So I thank Lucy Podmore for inviting us all together at Clark's Library. Anyway, with that, is there anything else before we move on to, and I'm stalling so I can get my computer back up, recognitions. And we will all go down.
Good evening, Dr. Woods, President Harrell. It's my pleasure to introduce Jamie Frias, a CTE teacher at Communication Arts High School, who's the 1920 Excel Award winner for NISD. The Excel Award is given to one outstanding teacher in each school district in the San Antonio area by KINS 5 and Credit Human. She was surprised earlier this year during a special assembly, which I had the privilege to attend, with a silver apple and a $1,000 check. She and all the district recipients will be honored at a dinner this coming spring. So to learn more about this outstanding educator, please watch this video.
I wonder what you're going to spend that $1,000.
Yeah, kids don't waste any time. They get straight to the point, and this was just a small part of the celebration there. Jamie Frias had no idea what she was walking into Tuesday morning at her Communications Arts High School. This week, she's our KINS 5 Credit Human Excel Award winner for Northside ISD.
Congrats. Thank you.
Every morning, the hallways are a little brighter.
Just seeing her around campus every day is like so uplifting.
As Mrs. Jamie Frias greets her high school students.
Now you're not going to say hi? I was pretty She's amazing.
She does whatever she can for us to make our days better.
So it's only fitting
Congratulations.
they return the affection with just as much enthusiasm. A surprise that left even an always prepared speech teacher short of words.
I don't know what to say. So all my speech kids, practice your speeches. I didn't know this was coming.
I wanted to blurt it out in your face. I know something you don't know.
Her family,
Tears of joy. Very proud of her. She's my baby.
was all by her side as she accepted our Excel Award.
And we're missing one party member.
Except the man she says inspired her most.
My father passed away in February. He would be very happy to be standing here.
Yeah, he's here.
And,
He's here.
The hard work and dedication her father taught her brought her to this point today. 18 years in education, from theater arts and special ed to now teaching speech and the UT On-Ramps dual enrollment course at the Communications Arts High School.
I like doing art on computers. I can't draw, but I can do art on computers.
In this classroom, it's all about the visual arts.
This class is very rigorous, and since it is like a college classic, we can see like exactly what we're going to be doing.
But the most important lesson, Frias says, is not on the computers or in the books. It's out in the community.
So this year we did a drive for Northside Threads, collecting socks and undergarments.
And as she continues to give, adding this award to her collection comes as no surprise to her husband, who's also a teacher.
Well, honestly, she's been Teacher of the Year twice, and now this, so I'm like, okay, she's setting the bar. And
Some competition in the house.
I think she won.
Raising the bar at the house. Congratulations again to Mrs. Frias. Next week we'll be at a different school district, and will it be your favorite teacher? Stay tuned for that.
So please join me in congratulating Jamie Frias for 1920 Excel Teacher of the Year. And as she is walking through, I would like to introduce Lisa Baker, her very proud principal. Congratulations again. This time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Galindo for further recognition.
Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, trustees. My name is Ray Galindo. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Administration, and it is my pleasure to recognize the members of the 2018-19 Northside Leadership Academy class. For the past 43 years, in an effort to identify and train future administrators, We have had specialized training in one form or another. For many years, this was in the form of AIM, the Administrative Internship Management Program. In 2013, we transitioned into the Northside Leadership Academy, or NLA. And before I continue, Diana Ely was instrumental in working with the admin team in that whole transition. And with us tonight as Adriana Garza, who's now instrumental in working with the program that we have. So I want to recognize her in the back. And so really, I think every year we try to tweak and improve, and certainly her team and her work is recognized and certainly part of what we think is a great future in Northside administration. So NLA is a year-long program that focuses on core competencies as they apply to school or department leadership. That's another piece that we've added. The admittance process into the program is a pretty rigorous one. Along with the typical paper application, participants are now required to go through a written problem-solving exercise, take a leadership inventory, as well as undergo a mini interview. And so at this time, I'd like to recognize the 6th graduating class of Northside Leadership Academy, NLA. Each graduate will receive a certificate completion like this one, and they will be directed by Levi Lara, who is here, and Eric Tobias from our admin team to the conference room to pick up their actual plaque. As they come forward, we'd like each of them to shake each of your hands, and then, as I said, continue into the conference room to pick up their plaque. Many of these individuals have already gone on to become administrators. Some actually attended part of this program as the auditing group, and you'll see them in just a second, and have already gone to start their administrative careers. And so at this time, I'd like to recognize them, and each, if you will, come up, and I'll tell you who they are and what school they're at. So we have Cynthia Escajeda at Carnahan Elementary. Cindy Gibson at Carlos Kuhn Elementary. Jennifer Hammond at Fields Elementary. Marisa Peña at Burke Elementary. Teresa Long at Stevenson Middle School. Cassandra Fernandez at Conley Middle School. Patricia Gutierrez at Marshall High School. Ruby de la Garza at Brennan High School. Melissa Benavides at Home Green Center. Courtney Trevino at Holmes. Oh, okay. Jacob Salinas, Brennan High School, assistant principal. Michael Lopez Taft High School, assistant principal. And so we'll continue with the aspiring leaders, and I apologize, all of those should be either an AP or a VP at school. And now we'll continue with our aspiring administrators, if you will come on up. We have Mayra Buendia from Knowlton Elementary. Cynthia Castillo at Meade Elementary. Desiree Cervantes at Baylao. Maria Cisneros at Baylao. Denise Frazier at Myers. Stephanie Janik at Westwood Terrace. Candice Maldonado, Valley High Elementary. Sarah Mireles at Linton Elementary. Gina Whitaker at Scarborough Elementary. Denise Pina at Pease Middle School. Dawn Rose at Luna Middle School. Kevin Van Lehem at Jones Middle School. Shannon Zavala at Briscoe Middle School. Laura San Roman Neff Middle School. Jean Karst, Jay High School. David LeBoy Harlan High School. Linda Lunas Stevens High School. And Dr. Marnestina Hedo at Holmes High School. This time I'd like to recognize any family that are here to support our honorees. I cleared the room out, okay. That last group is our future group of administrators. Dr. Harrell, this concludes our recognitions for this evening.
We ready to go on?
Yes.
All right, moving right along. item 7, there are no items for reports. Oh, Ms. Chumley, did you have a comment?
Not on reports, on
Okay,
consent agenda.
on consent agenda.
I just had 3 real quick
Okay.
questions. I apologize, I did not get a chance to get a call out today on them.
Go for it.
So on the requisition, under C award of bids, the one for the Into-Y LLC, which is the news to you, if somebody can just briefly give me an idea of what that is and who uses it and how it's pulled. Is there anybody that can tell me that?
Good afternoon or evening. It's actually a supplement, a resource that we use for our students in our ALE classes. And so it's something that we've used for several years now, and it just supplements our curriculum.
Okay, but what news is pulled? And it's in your ALE classes?
Yes. And so it's current events and it's stories, and so it's modified to the student's level, and it's just a bunch of resources.
Okay. I was just curious because on news nowadays, you can't get anything that's just an unbiased, it's not really news anymore. It tends to be either you feel this way or you feel that way, but that's not, you're not talking about all the current politics and stuff. These are
Correct.
just news of current events and things.
Current events like during Columbus,
Right.
it talks about, Columbus and what he did, and then Martin Luther King, and so it's all current kind of events.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then the Thomas Bus Gulf Coast GP, anyway, the 6 new buses, those are all air conditioned, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Those are the mini white fleet buses.
the
that
mini
we've
white
been using.
ones. Is that working pretty
Yes.
well, that where we're providing those buses and instead of having the full?
Very popular, yes. And we've provided each high school, Ms. Chumley, with one, and each magnet school one, because they're used for field trips during the day, so they've been very effective for that use.
Do the teachers that drive these have to have a commercial license?
No, ma'am.
They don't. That's great. I'm really glad to hear that. Just one question on that, though. Do we check our driver, when teachers are driving our kids, do we check what their driving record is?
Yes, they
or
still
anything
go
like
through
that?
some background check. Although they're not CDL certified, we do a check, yes.
Okay, all right. And then just one more, the interlocal contract on the purchasing, is this is another purchasing co-op in addition to the TASB co-op that we use?
Yes, yes, it is.
And the purpose of having more than one?
Well, actually, this particular co-op is actually a merger of 2 other co-ops.
That
So
we are currently using?
Yes. So
Okay.
And usually we don't participate in the co-ops if they have fees and stuff like that, so they're just available to us.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was it. I
Great
move
questions. Okay, there's, and a second, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Oh, sorry, the blunt's throwing me off. Ms. Reed? No, it's okay, it's okay. I'm good.
I just wanted to remark for those in the audience and those that are listening, there are a lot of items on this consent agenda that they have pretty much all been reviewed by a committee.
Can you put your mic on?
All of these items that are on here have been already through a committee so that they have been looked at in depth, especially the investment portfolio, I might add, which is a big one on here. But the other items that are here have also been discussed in smaller group meetings so that they've been vetted very well before they come to the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you for adding that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it, and it was approved. So we will move on to citizens to be heard. Before we begin, I'm going to read the rules for addressing the board. Citizens to be heard. We believe citizens to be heard is important and meaningful, and we will listen to what you have to say. We value your opinions, although restrained by law from taking any action. We value your opinions, and we will listen to what you have to say, so please use the podium, address your remarks to our board, confine your remarks to Northside ISD policy or practice, limit your remarks to 3 minutes, At 2 minutes, the board secretary, Mina, will hold up the yellow card. At 3 minutes, the board secretary will hold up the red card. We ask that you wrap up your remarks at that point, please, and do not make personal attacks on any individuals. Audience should refrain from applause or any negative response. Thank you. So, Mr. Secretary, we have first, please?
Thank you. Our first speaker will be Camelia Sandoval.
Madam President, Dr. Woods, esteemed board members, my name is Camelia Sandoval. I'm a member of Northside AFT as well as a science teacher at Taft High School. Today we would like to speak to the board again regarding the law of planning and prep and the importance of ensuring our educators are getting that time to plan for their lessons. We have spoken to you all in the past regarding this issue. We know our union staff has spoken with Dr. Woods, presented him with information, and yet this right continues to be violated across the district. This is a protected right of teachers and a necessary part of allowing us the time to tackle the many responsibilities we already have as teachers, in addition to new ones required of us each year. The law on planning and prep reads each classroom teacher is entitled to at least 450 minutes within each 2-week period for instructional preparation, including parent-teacher conferences, evaluating student work, and planning. A planning and preparation period under this section may not be less than 45 minutes within the instructional day. During a planning and preparation period, a classroom teacher, may not be required to participate in any other activity. This period is to be used at the discretion of the teacher and may not be hijacked by administrators without the consent of the teacher. The Attorney General of Texas, during preparation and planning period, it is unlawful to mandate attendance at group sessions. The commissioner went on to say that this law does not prohibit a teacher from volunteering to participate in a meeting or planning session during her planning period. The operative word here is volunteering. We are simply asking that teachers be given choice as to when we would like to meet for PLCs and be appropriate options. We understand the importance of teacher-led professional learning communities to better target our student needs. We are not opposed to meeting when necessary. We do, however, need you to understand that our time is extremely valuable and important to planning our best instruction. This is exactly why the law was put into place. Because planning and preparation time must consist of 450 minutes provided every 10 days, it is also important to understand a few more facets of time allocation. We must have at least 45 minutes consecutive on any day we are given a prep period. It cannot be divided up throughout the day. We are being required to use our conference periods 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes even more, to attend meetings. We are not being given options when these meetings will take place. In addition to this, ARDs and other meetings are being set up by administrators during our planning and prep. We would like to ask the district one last time to please honor the right to planning and prep, adhere to the law as it is written, allow teachers choice in when they meet for PLCs and other meetings, and to look at possibly holding PLCs once every 2 weeks to better assist teachers in getting the personal planning and work done to better provide quality instruction to their students. If teachers would like to meet more often, that is a decision they should be allowed to make. We bring this important matter to you in the hopes that this issue will find resolved at the district level. Restore planning and prep to our teachers for better student instruction and results.
Thank you, Ms. Sandoval. Okay, Mr. Medina.
Madeline Garcia.
Trustees and Dr. Woods, my name is Madeline Garcia, and I'm here today to address some issues that not only I, but many of my fellow head custodians as well have. Last year, towards the end of the year, there was a pilot program implemented in some schools to see if it would be effective through the district. I understand that the board has approved this. However, I do have some concerns that I would like to bring up. I want to voice for those of the ones who are keeping our schools going, safe, clean, and inviting to our students and family. The first thing that came to my mind is a very important person less on campus. God forbid something terrible to happen to any of our Northside students. It is the head custodian's job to keep the school safe and secure. We custodians don't want to think of it, but let me say it. At an event that could take place such as the Sandy Hook Elementary could happen, we custodians would frantically make an effort to warn others, pull, grab, and even snatch a student to safety. These relationships that we build every day with our children and to comfort them in a horrific event is important. I'm not even sure if you even thought of it, but we did. Is it worth it? At what cost would it be? I don't even think about it. I wouldn't want to even think about it. But one very important person less on campus is horrible. Holmes Green is another situation. Holmes Green is students are another situation to where the head custodian helps with lockdown procedures and to make students that are safe. All students are safe. As I think of moments like this, it causes me to reflect on time spent with my family and many other custodians and custodians as well. Time is a present, and we must enjoy it at every moment. These concerns are situations where the new hours given to head custodians do not work. When I agreed to work for Northside, I accepted the hours of 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. because these hours allowed me to work and be there for my children in the afternoon. On what I make as an hour as a head custodian, I cannot afford childcare. Being in a family-friendly district is something I believe Northside takes a great deal of pride in. How can I be in a family-friendly district but not be able to take care of my child's needs? There have been exemptions to this new program already, where the head custodian might go to night school to keep their old schedule. I believe that there should be family exemptions too for a single mother as myself to care for my child. Many other custodians need to be with their families as this is causing undue stress and anxiety for them, causing them to even leave the district. This is a huge problem. The district has already been shorthanded 139 custodians, even with 30-plus custodians waiting to be processed. And to join the custodial team of the district, we do not have the manpower to continue, as we will still be understaffed by 100. We need help. We need your help to fix these issues mentioned as the ones below. Also, we have low morale. Employees don't want to stay overtime. We have stress on their families. We also have family members that are taking FML leave and using their FML leave to make arrangements with the HR. We have manipulation of work orders where work orders are being closed out. We're having misuse of staff of beautification process where the maintenances are outside during the summer working. Yes.
Do you mind winding up with a few more sentences?
Yes, ma'am.
And a closing statement.
And I would like to ask if there's more issues that I have here, but if I thank you for listening to us. Given these issues, there are some serious consideration and helping us to work in a safe, secure, and inclusive work environment, free from fear of retaliation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. All right, we will move on to item 11, facilities and operations. Mr. San Miguel.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. Thank you. We have several items for you tonight, mostly our schematic designs. As you may know, we have a pretty robust and aggressive building program, and as a result of, we come before you on a regular basis to show you and get your approvals on a multitude of facility-related items. The first one is a conceptual planning for the expansion of Health Careers High School. Some of you know that from time to time we do conceptual planning or what we call master planning to ensure that the particular facility in question is planned accordingly as we move forward. And there's no secret that from our perspective, we need to look at what that facility will start to look like in 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 years. And so as a result of that, we are proposing the conceptual design, and would like to get approval from the Board of Trustees tonight. Here tonight to give us the conceptual design is Mr. Sean Carlson. And he will give us that presentation here shortly.
Thank you. Dr. Hurl, Dr. Woods, members of the board, senior staff, and I am Sean Carlson with K-Energy Architects, and I'm here to present the conceptual master plan and expansion to Health Careers High School. I got way ahead of me. Sorry. Where do I need to put this on? Thank you. Okay, currently Health Careers High School is about a 94,000 square foot building, two-story, as marked as Building A, constructed in 1985. The entrance is kind of tucked in this corner, with the administration being right adjacent to that. And student drop-off is actually in this area. On this side of the school, we have the bus loop. The goals of this campus is to increase the student enrollment, as well as bringing the core spaces and the all program spaces up to district standards in size and in count. Next to Health Careers, as noted in B, is Northside Children's Center, which is roughly 19,300 square foot. And in order to meet these goals, what we're recommending is a multi-phased process, where the first phase of this would be to renovate the Northside Children's Center into instructional space to help accommodate what is needed at Health Careers. The second phase would be to add a 40,000 square foot two-story building. In that, we would recommend putting the administration in this building, relocating it from that side of campus to this side. We would change this to the bus loop, and this would be the new student drop-off. This would give us an opportunity to have a prominent entrance for Health Careers as well. Phase 3 is kind of broken up into two pieces, where the first part would be to expand the cafeteria, which is undersized for the current student enrollment, into the current administration area, which would then, it was relocated in phase 2. And then the second part of phase 3 would be to increase or to renovate the first and second floor classrooms and labs into the size that is district standard and also to the quantity. So at the end, you would have a contiguous building where the kids can traverse from the old Health Careers through the new addition into the Northside Children's Center. We would have a new student drop-off with a prominent entrance and a bus loop that is located over here towards the cafeteria. As always, we thank you for the opportunity, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Sorry, Ms. Chumley.
Dr. Harrell, the building committee reviewed this recommendation, and there was generous discussion about it. I wish we could do it. I think the wish was that we could do all of it at the same time. There was one thing that was brought up, though, Sean, if you would please address that. We had talked about the security of it, and you had indicated that you would be putting fencing in. So is that now part of your plan?
It would be part of the plan for phase 1, and then when we do the second phase, then we would have the entrance and that fencing could be removed in order to get the kids from what is now the Northside Children's Center to Health Careers, because they would be disconnected or not, they would have canopy.
Well, and I know that you had said that Home Green had asked about security as well. So maybe the next time, next step will be the interior presentation
The
piece.
next step is Chumley is schematic design
Right.
for this particular, the children's center. that will be converted to be the expansion of health careers. And we will also at that time look at security
Hey, if you
issues.
could add that,
And we
add
will
that
look-
piece of it to the schematic design phase, because that was something that the building committee did bring out, was important, since this is a separate building that is standing off by itself, is that we have some kind of fencing. And if we're not putting a security lobby in the building, which is my understanding, that's not the intent because of phase two, but phase two is the next bond, so, that we have security fencing in place on the school.
We will look at the entire security perimeter of the campus, and it may be a multitude of things. It may be
Okay.
fencing, access control, cameras, things of that nature, so we'll look at it holistically.
Okay, just have that in the schematic, if you would,
We will.
please, since that's part of it as well. I move approval.
Great. No, and I just had a real quick question, but I think Dr. Woods answered it for me. But I was wondering what was currently in the Children's Center right now and where they would be moving to.
So right now, there isn't anyone in the Children's Center. We actually vacated that space over this past summer in anticipation of this project. That campus did hold some small programs that served students that we've moved to regular campuses, as well as some office space.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the summary, Ms. Chumbley. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it.
I had a comment.
Ms. Blunt-Reed?
I'm not sure I'd be any better if I were over there. I just wanted to say that this is a program that's been one of our highest performing schools that we have in Northside, and has always been flooded with applicants, and so this will eventually, when we get it all finished, allow us to have at least 200 more students, maybe even a
Wow.
little bit more than what we currently have, and so I think it's a really good expansion.
I'm
So,
hopeful for
thanks for
quite a bit
voting
more.
yes.
And thank you for adding those comments too. All right, we'll move on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Leroy telling us
We
about John
actually-
Marshall High School.
No, we actually,
Oh, poo.
we've actually pulled this one, Dr. Hall, that was an item, and we've resolved that issue. So we're ready for item C under facilities and operations.
All right, let's go. Anson Jones.
The next project we have for you today is the Anson Jones Middle School magnet. As you may remember, the Board of Trustees authorized us to proceed with this particular project as a result of a resolution that utilizes 2014 bond surplus proceeds. And so I can tell you that it's been somewhat of a long road for us, given that we don't usually build middle school magnets at Northside. This will be our first, obviously. And so there was a lot of research that happened behind the scenes, all the way from visiting other school districts that have magnet schools to really sitting down with the architects and our CTE folks and various other staff members, including administration, to define what this program should look like. And so there's a lot of information and research that went into this particular project. Today, we have Fluor Architects that are going to do the presentation for us for the magnet school. And it's, there you are, Carl Hornbuckle and Andrew Pettis.
Thank you, Leroy. Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent, members of the board. We were actually with you last month to give a presentation very much like the one Sean just gave on health careers. So on the next slide, this is a refresher of what we showed you for the overall conceptual plan for Jones. What we're here to talk about tonight is this schematic design phase, that kind of looking a little bit more at the interiors and the layout for this initial piece. The other component that we'll actually be visiting with you all again on is number 2 on this slide, and that's a community health clinic. Tonight we're focusing our efforts strictly on the magnet program addition and renovation. So on the next slide, this is a schematic layout for the space. There's 2 different colors. The darker color would be additional square footage being built, and the lighter green color is space that's being renovated for the program. You'll note that on the right-hand side of this image is the existing entry, main entry to Jones Middle School, and the configuration of this is set up so that in a subsequent bond, that can be replaced and improved. Thank you. Make sure I know how to do this. In this quadrant, when the district may want to move forward with administrative improvements. On our main floor, we have an administrative suite for the magnet, along with a suite of 5 teaching spaces related to the CTE component of the magnet program itself. And then on our second slide, this is the corresponding space on the second floor of the school. So again, we have a suite of 7 classrooms that are programmed for math and science. You may remember from the conceptual look at this that these are not only larger spaces than the existing teaching spaces at Jones, but they're actually larger than the district standard we would have for middle school teaching spaces because of the innovative things that they're looking to do in this new magnet program. So with the remainder of our time, I wanted to show you a few images for the look of the building. On each of these slides, at the top, we show the existing frontage along Jones and then a proposal for what this new addition and renovation could look like. We know we'll be visiting with you all again in terms of colors, so really what we wanted to share with you tonight is just an overall scale for the this renovation and addition. This is looking at it from one angle. On the next slide, we're actually showing you what the overall frontage would look like for the school with this addition taking place. And on the slide following this, we wanted to be able to understand the context for what might happen in a future project. So this piece here would actually be at the point in time that the district chose to move forward with a administrative renovation and expansion. It would start to sort of fill out the entire complement of the front of the school. The next slide shows you just a flavor of some of the interior space that we'd be creating. Again, like the work that's being done for the new magnet program at Marshall, they're looking at more interior collaborative space that's shared by teachers. So it's more activity outside of the classroom, but also well connected into teaching spaces. And on our last slide, then, we'll just leave you with one more set of images. This is looking at that addition from the other approach. And on the next slide, the final slide, just shows you what would happen over time with that new entry addition potentially happening.
Ms. Jumbly, did you have some comments or questions?
Just the building committee did a big review on this, and we talked about some of the placement of the administrative piece within the magnet, and it made sense with the next phase that will redo the administration with Anson Jones. And then the other thing, Carol, that the building committee had asked, which is what Card mentioned in relation to the colors, is that on that piece that's the new magnet, is if there was something that could be done underneath, so it's not just that top piece. And so they said that they'll be bringing that back. Well, I had one question, though, which I didn't think about during building, is a title to it. Will we have a name? Will we have a name on it? You know, Brian, I was thinking, because this is the first middle school magnet that we've had, but all our other magnets have their own name. So are we
Yeah,
thinking about?
we haven't even had that conversation. I mean, it's got a working name in that because we're out recruiting kids and we're calling it Jones Middle School STEM Magnet, just kind of a generic magnet.
Right.
But we haven't talked about a formal naming process.
Well, even though I do think, though, that if we could include that, I think it would be neat. I mean, particularly when we have the front, when we redo the rest of the front of Jones, that it would be neat to have, even if it's just HA STEM Magnet. I mean, that we have something that identifies the reason that building looks different is because that's the magnet school.
We agree. We would want to designate it because, you want to be able to know from the front what's there.
Right,
So, yeah, we would definitely do that.
And, I think raise enthusiasm among the community. Anyway, the building committee was pleased with this.
Ms. Reed, do you have any comments? I'm just trying to say proactive.
No, I just think it's quite an exciting exciting prospect that we're starting, and it works well with the STEM program that we have at John Jay. So if Melissa doesn't mind, I would move forward.
All right.
Second.
Second, it's been, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Thank you.
All right, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Go.
Lots of pride in that.
The next item we have for you is the kitchen cafeteria upgrade at Rudder Middle School. This was part of the 2018 BOM program initiative that continues our quest to upgrade our kitchens in our schools. Tonight we have for you a presentation for the design, what we call the schematic design for the upgrade of the kitchen and the cafeteria at Rudder. And the architects, we have Huckabee Architects and Dan Luttrell and Jeff Rodriguez are here to give us a presentation.
Madam President, Dr. Woods, members of the board, I apologize for not being at the building committee last Friday, but I had a surgery, so I'm happy to be here today to be presenting. So
You're doing great.
yes,
That's the only reason we're excused.
yes, I had to show I had an IV hooked up to me. So we're here today to present Rudder cafeteria and kitchen renovation. So it's a pretty straightforward project, so we'll go ahead and get into it here. So pointer. Okay, thank you. So Rudder is on Horn Boulevard and Abe Lincoln, and so this is a site plan / floor plan of the existing campus there. And so what you'll see here is the kitchen is in this location number 1, the serving, which is 4 lines in area 2. The cafeteria is in area 3, cafetorium, because there's a platform that's there. Then item number 4 is the CTE wood shop, and item 5 is the dance classroom. So that's the existing floor plan. So when we get into the revised to go with the updated standards for both the cafeteria and kitchen, so we've increased the kitchen size here. This line here was the old demarc of the old cafeteria, or the kitchen. And so when we bring it up to current standards, we expand into what was the existing wood shop there. And so we are adding 4 serving lines into the serving area here, and increasing into the cafeteria at this location right here. So with that, we have an impact to the CTE wood shop, and so when we looked at that, we then increased area 4 here to bring it up to the district standards as well. And so when we did that, we displaced the classroom, and now the dance classroom is moving over to location number 5. So there we go, and there's an interior renovation shot of the expanded cafeteria and serving areas.
Really good.
Yep. Good job.
Mr. Lopez, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, sir, Madam President. Roy, on page 5, for the dance classroom, what is the square footage for the dance classroom?
This dance classroom, I think that was about 985. It's real close to the 1,000 that we were targeting.
Coming over.
1,000 square feet.
So it's bigger than a typical classroom, slightly bigger than a typical classroom. Almost 1,000
What would be the amount of students that they're anticipating in that, and would that be large enough?
It should be, because right now they have it in the old wood shop.
Oh, okay,
So to
that's,
speak. So it's, even though the wood shop may be a slightly bigger, but what we've noticed, if you remember, in our normal middle schools, the computer lab that was repurposed at some of those schools was repurposed to a dance classroom.
Oh,
And
okay.
that seems to be about that size, and they're about 900. This is slightly bigger than that.
Okay, good. That's all. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Chumley, did you want to add anything from Building Committee on this one?
No, we had a good discussion on it, and thank you, Gerald, for mentioning that, because we talked about that as well on it. I do have something I just want to add real quickly from the previous presentation, is I just wanted to do a shout out for Deanna Dean. She did a really good job of explaining. We had a good discussion about, looking forward, say 5 years from now, what would that STEM magnet need? And I think she's really tried to place, particularly with the collaborative area. She's really trying to get us in a place where we'll be able to incorporate any new advances or changes. And so I just wanted to say thank you to her, because I thought, and I'm sure there were others on her committee, but I really did appreciate, what she was doing in relation to that. So I apologize, I missed saying that on the other. No, I think that the building committee was very pleased with this. It's going to make it so much nicer compared to when you see the pictures of what's there now. So with that, I move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Yay, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, now we have
The next item we have. Passmore. So, again, this is another, for a continuation of our various initiatives regarding improving our schools. And this is for a library renovation addition, or actually it's a renovation at Passmore Elementary School. And today we have Marco Pelt with LPA, who's going to do the presentation for us on the schematic design.
Thank you, Leroy. Great, thank you so much. Madam President, Dr. Woods, trustees, thank you all for allowing me to make a presentation to you about Passmore Elementary School. Our program at this elementary campus is to create a library space that is more in line with the size of library spaces that are at other elementary schools in the district.
Took the design pictures out of the reading.
And so this first slide that we have is the existing campus, and I'll just point out a couple things about it. The library sits, here's the current main entry, and it sits sort of in the center of the campus in this position. Adjacent to it are some bathrooms, some offices, and then a set of restrooms that we're going to have to remodel to meet ADA requirements. None of the restrooms in that particular area meet ADA requirements right now. So what we just did to, let's see if I can get this to advance. There we go. So what we looked at was this block of space here and tried to figure out how we can enlarge the cafeteria and bring a little more, I guess, usability to it. One of the things that is currently being done in some of the elementary schools is pull a computer lab closer to the library. So we have had an opportunity to do that with this block of space. You'll see that in the enlarged version. But basically, the library is staying in the existing location, just sliding down a little bit. We're not moving any corridor walls. Let me move to the next slide. Here we go. So that is a new library space. It's right at the same square footage that's being constructed in the new elementary schools, up about 600 square feet from the existing library, so we're providing quite a bit of extra space. One of the factors in our design was trying to maintain the location of the existing MDF room, which obviously is very expensive to relocate, so we were able to work around that. And this number 2 here is the computer lab. The spaces that are displaced, we've got several classrooms on the campus that are available, so they were able to move a couple of those uses around. And then we're doing a minor remodeling here to create two rooms out of one to accommodate the speech therapist and speech. So that'll become a new portion of that work. Oops, and there, back that up. Here it is in a little bit larger version. I'll talk a little bit about the furniture layout. Of course, as you know, all the new libraries, all of the furniture is mobile, so it can be moved around by the librarian. So really, anything we're doing here is just suggested. One thing that we are working on with the principal and staff is a design feature in the library. We've kind of isolated this corner to be the location of that. It could be part of a storytelling curriculum with a librarian. So we'll be back to the board after we kind of work through some more details and bring some renderings of that and let you know what that looks like.
I was wondering why y'all had pulled that.
Well, we just weren't there yet, so we'll be back though with an updated design after we've had a chance to work through it a couple times with the staff.
Thank you.
The computer lab is located here. Of course, there's accessibility from the library directly into the computer lab, and the computer lab also has accessibility out to the hallway. And then these bathrooms have been expanded by about that much, and that allows this group of bathrooms to become ADA accessible. So that will be the bathrooms that will be accessible by the library. And then this will be a janitor's closet. This, let's see, room right here is that MDF room, which stays the same. So there it is in a nutshell. Fairly straightforward project, and we're looking forward to going to the next step.
Good. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Chumley, did you have any kind of summary from the committee?
I think Ms. Reed had some input that she was gonna.
Yes, she does. Ms. Reed? Oh,
Actually, that was from last time, but I'll take it anyway. This is obviously a work in progress, and we'll look forward to it coming back again, but I would certainly say I think you've done a good job of using different spaces to make some room here, and especially with the computer lab and fixing up the restrooms, so I would move approval.
Second.
okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. So we'll
very
move
much.
right on with Callison Ranch Area Middle School.
Yeah, the only thing, Carol, that I wanted to add on this one is that I know that with library services and with talking to the administrators on the campuses, that we're looking at trying to have more flexibility within our libraries. I know I personally am struggling with some of that because I like a reading area, but I know that we're trying to find some good common ground on that, and I appreciate that in our design process.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All
The
right,
next
Mr.
item is
Sandoval.
amendment number 2, GMP for Callison Ranch Area Middle School. Bartlett Cobb Contractors was awarded the construction manager at risk on June the 26th, 2018 for Callison Ranch Area Middle School. The project consists of several phases and subsequent bids, given the complexity and the size of the project. This request is for amendment number 2, and not to exceed the sum of, and I'm going to give you a new number, because during the building committee, there was made some requests to make some changes, and so we didn't get a chance to get the new figures in. But the new figure that should be on the agenda is $32,116,712. And so this will be the last piece of the amendment, so that Bartlett Cobb can start the construction process. They are currently working out there. And this will complete the total project, so to speak, in terms of the bid, so they can finish the project. So in the audience, we have Scott Parker and the architect, Jerry Lammers, as well. There they are, back there.
Leroy, can you say the number one more time?
It's
32.
$32,116,712.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chubley.
In building committee, what Leroy's talking about in relation to the change in the numbers is that Bartlett Cock had done value engineering on the design, and there was one canopy. If y'all remember on this building, it's kind of like a U. So you've got building here, building here, building here. It's kind of like a sideways U. And so there's a walkway back on the back part between the two sides of it. And there was a canopy there, and that had been valued engineered out. It was about $56,000, I think. 60, about 60,000. And so it was thought that we really need to put that back in there. So that was one of the things that building committee had looked at. And then there were a couple of other items that have been valued engineered out that really don't have a lot of impact on the design, but that piece of it was. And then we also moved the canopy and the entrance at the very front so that now we'll have, they're a little bit further away from the mechanical area for the cafeteria, and then they are now under canopy still when kids are dropped off. So those were really the only two kind of design changes that you'll see if you go back to look at the other.
And that second item, Ms. Chumley, if I may, was no cost item because we just lit the canopy over, 30, 40 feet.
Right. And then I just want to take a personal moment, just real quick, to say thank you to, this is great because we have two of our great contractors in the room, to Gary Joris with Joris, who will be next on our high school, and Scott Parker with Bartlett Cock. We are so blessed to have you gentlemen always bidding on our schools and working so well with us. And our staff has said that as well, that when an issue comes up, y'all are always willing to find common ground with us to try to resolve it. And I just really appreciate that all of you, that you both are here as well, and Jerry Lammers too, who has been on a lot of our large projects, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Oh,
Thank
I move
you.
approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, it passes. Thank you.
Scott, better leave so you can go to work.
Yay. Take care.
Then the next item for you is amendment number 1 of the GMP for Gulm Road Area High School. George General Contractors was awarded the construction manager at risk contract on September 25th, 2018. This project consists of several phases and subsequent bids given the complexity and the size of the project. This request is for the amendment number 1, and we anticipate there's going to be a total of 4 amendments, but given timing and how we need to sequence work and get started really fast to start the construction process to meet our deadline. And this one's amendment number 1, not to exceed $1,111,493 for the necessary work associated with the groundwater control. Now, we gave a full presentation to the building committee of exactly what that is. And so we have it if you really want to see it. But it's something that we are recommending in terms of something that we need to do to control the migration of water in and around the site. So with us today, we got Gary Joris from Joris and Russell Seaman, one of their estimators. And of course, Jerry Lammers again.
Ms. Chumley? Ms. Chumley?
In building committee, so what this is we're talking about building a Surrey wall all the way around this whole huge endeavor, huge. And in fact, I'm really surprised it's only $1 million. But one of the questions in building committee was if you would please check and find out if your vendor had experience on this larger project. Did y'all
Yes.
have a chance to do that?
We did. The contractor gave us the information. We reviewed it carefully with all parties and feel comfortable that this contractor has the competency and the skill to be able to undertake something like this.
So is this the largest project that he will have ever done in this?
No, it's relatively small, actually.
Really? So did they give you any examples of some of the other ones where they've done a slurry wall like this?
Our wall is about 50,000 vertical square feet wall area.
Uh-huh.
They've done them that are 400, 500,000 vertical square feet. So
And this is.
Really? And I'm sure, and I apologize for asking, but I don't want to be asking the question after the fact when we have a problem. So y'all have checked like all of their references. You've talked to the people on the big projects like this that they have done and gotten back. You're comfortable with what you've gotten back from them in relation to.
they've consistently been building this type of wall all over the country since 2002.
And in this kind of soil?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry to beat a dead horse, but thank you. It's a huge, I mean, it's really big for us. We've never done anything like this in Northside, so thank y'all.
No, and thanks for asking those questions too. Ms. Freeman, you had the look but not the light.
I thought I pushed the light. Um, I don't know that we clarified this at building committee. There were not any other options that were presented to you regarding this to help with the groundwater. Any other options that we could have considered besides the Surrey wall?
I know that we went through a series of, how should you say, options early on. And one of the things that I think would be noteworthy here would be that this comes from our engineers, geotechnical, Rob Kishner, having probably one of the best soils engineer around, have actually looked at this thing with our structural engineer, with our civil engineer, with our architects, and they came up with some ideas, and then the contractor, given it's a CM at risk, and they're there at the table when we are looking at options and things of that nature, they jumped in and also said, can we look at this? But the only real option was to be able to cut off that water at its source, so to speak, so it doesn't migrate into the foundation systems. So the only other option was to try to figure a way to be able not to do very much, but the risk was pretty high. And given this is a 400,000 square foot building, multi-million-dollar building, the amount of money that we would spend on this particular item would be relatively small compared to the potential impact in there. We talked about pumping water constantly and things of that nature, which could be detrimental over the long haul from an operational standpoint. So we did talk about a couple of options, but this is the one that floated to the top, no pun intended.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Is there a motion on the floor?
I would move that we approve the additional funding to build the slurry wall around the Calm Road Area High School.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, you have your wall.
Thank y'all.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Make sure it doesn't get any holes in it. Don't want to put my finger in it.
Slurry, slurry,
It's kind of
slurry,
like a dam around. Yeah,
slurry. That's a new word.
and the water has to go around.
Slurry wall.
All right, you ready?
All right, moving right along. Business and Finance, Mr. Rastellini.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. This evening, I do have several items that I need to present to the board for consideration. The first one that we have on the agenda is item number A, the budget amendment number 1 for school year 2019-20. Typical time frame of this particular budget amendment is October. So we're right on schedule, and as usual, most of the items that you'll see in Budget Amendment 1, we do have carry forward items, realignment of current resources, and we start our current year request. By the way, we did go through this particular budget amendment in detail in Finance Committee earlier this evening, so as we go through this presentation, if you have a specific question, I'll be more than happy to answer it. Okay, let me catch up with you. All right. The first part of the entry that we have is related to our base budget on the appropriations. Keep in mind that our base budget adjustments, these are adjustments that will go in the budget and stay in the budget on a recurring basis. So with this particular budget amendment, we have approximately $1.6 million that we're adding to the budget. It does include some pre-K expansion, staffing, several requests for staffing reclassifications. Also, the special education staffing, you might recall that Dr. Woods had mentioned our growth this year, we're seeing significant numbers in our special ed population. So along with that, we're seeing requests and needs for additional special education staffing. The particular adjustment this year in Budget Amendment 1, we're adding approximately 20 staffing units for both teaching and instructional assistants. And then also, we do include in the base budget adjustment our enrollment adjustments that we see. The next part, which is typically the biggest part of our Budget Amendment 1 entry, this year is no different. We're seeing an increase in our appropriations of almost $15.3 million. It's typically a large number, but the result, that is the result of significant carry forwards from the prior year into the current year. So what we're seeing on the carry forwards is we do have some costs that we're bringing forward for our pre-K expansion. These were dollars that were appropriated last year for some renovation and some other items, as well as our GPS system in the transportation. Again, they weren't spent last year, so we're bringing those appropriations forward. Also in the carry forwards, and these are where we typically see the big numbers, we have purchase order carry forward. Again, this is really just more of an accounting issue that we have to take care of at the end of the year and then reappropriate in the next year. Campus formula funds, there's two of significant in there is actually campus formula, and also we have the high school allotment legacy funds. Those carry forward back into the campuses each year. It gives them some flexibility as to when and how much they can spend those dollars. Other one-time costs that we have in that $15 million figure, we do have resources from dedicated funds. These include some athletic projects that we had committed to as a result of the 2018 bond issue. And then the most significant amount of dollars in that particular item is the carry forward for the 2016 hail damage that we had on the roofing projects. Also included in the budget amendment is what we call revenue offset. Keep in mind, these are going to be appropriations that are offset by either some dedicated deferred revenue account or some other account that we have in the general fund. So they have a net effect of zero on the fund balance. And the total of those dollars, I think there were 5 of those items, was a little less than $300,000. All that being said, the net decrease to our fund balance as a result of Budget Amendment 1 is about $16.8 million. That's funded, roughly $12 million is coming from the unassigned fund balance, which we expected, and then the balance, or about $4.8 million of those dollars, are coming from committed funds. Also included in Budget Amendment this year, Budget Amendment 1 is also, we made an adjustment to the Child Nutrition Fund for additional food costs. Keep in mind that fund is a self-balancing fund up through the year, so we also increased the revenue by $1 million. And that is my presentation for Budget Amendment 1, and unless there's any specific question, I would recommend approval as presented.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Yes, David, on this one, could you remind me, did we have a sweep? Was the sweep included on this one?
Well,
in
your
your sweep,
report,
yeah.
in your book, there's actually 2 schedules. One schedule shows the official budget, which includes the general fund, child nutrition fund, and debt service fund. That particular schedule does not account for the sweep, so you would see a significant reduction in the fund balance. Now, the other schedule that we have in there is for the general fund only, where we plow the sweep back in, so you can see the maintenance of our unassigned fund balance.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Madam President, and this was discussed in the Finance Committee today. And as you can see, these are just adjustments that we're making for the beginning of the year and, and hiring and adding units as far as teachers and stuff. So unless there's anybody else that has any comment, I would move that we approve the Budget Amendment 1 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, so budget amendment number 1 has been approved. We'll move on to 12B.
Actually, what I would like to do, Madam
President.
President, if it's okay, I did prepare a presentation that addressed the next 4 items. These are typical that we bring in October, the district's bond parameter orders for the upcoming year. So what I'd like to do is just go through this presentation and then I'll lead into the recommendation for each one of the bond orders. So on the next slide, typically what the district's debt management team does in October, and that includes not only the internal staff, but also the district's bond counsel and financial advisor. What we will do is we will identify transaction opportunities, in this case for 1920. And in that identification, we identify the new money, and this is basically the dollars that become available from our bond authorizations to finance our capital projects, as well as current refundings that are available to us and variable rate issues. You might recall that we have about 7 what we call VRDOs, or variable rate issues. From that, we will recommend parameter orders to cover all the opportunities. And the reason why I say cover is those parameter orders are written in such a way that, take, for example, a fixed rate issue, a traditional fixed rate mortgage, if you will. We will incorporate in that order all of our opportunities. So that'll include all the new money, all the refundings, and all the variable rate. But also in those parameter orders, we will write in that they have to be compared to the other parameter orders or orders that we do, so we don't exceed a certain level. Those parameter orders also set the term periods for issuing debt, typically 30 years, the rates that we can allow. And then it also, and most importantly, or very importantly, is it authorizes the representatives to do the transactions. The reason why I bring that up is because in your parameter orders, what we're trying to do there is to give us the ability to move quickly on a transaction, so to speak, or make it happen without having to continually bringing orders back to the board, which may slow down that process. But it also, in naming the representative, that gives the board the ability to designate certain administrative staff to conduct these transactions, which we've done in the past. On the next slide, the new money that we have in looking at our opportunities, we set at $275 million in the parameter orders this year. That money comes from roughly it's not roughly, it's $69.1 million from our 2014 authorization. That is our unspent authorization. You might recall last year we had $100 million, but we did not need to issue all those dollars, so this is just the balance moving forward. 2018, just a little over $200 million. This is actually a little higher than what we had planned or showed in our issuing plan when we were looking at the authorization. However, we feel like we want to keep that capacity out there simply because our current capacity to support debt it gives us that ability, number one, and number two is if the markets lend themselves advantage to pulling the trigger on those transactions, we can do it. Just to give you some idea, when we looked at the last year's activity, we had over $100 million in cost avoidance and savings, and some of that was because of the market, so we want to make sure we're in that position again as well. On the next series of opportunities, what we look at here is our refunding opportunities.
David, wait a minute, let me ask you something.
Absolutely.
So everything that I've been reading about the market and what's going to happen, and everyone is predicting that, you know, we're looking at moving into a recession of some type. I mean, even the most conservative and the most liberal, I mean, all the talking heads are saying that that's the one thing that they are in agreement on it. The size of it and when is what seems to be. So how do we position ourselves with the thought that that might be true?
Well, a couple things. That's a very good question, Ms. Chumley. But there's a couple things that the district has traditionally done. You know, we do run our debt program with certain objectives like maintaining or managing the tax rate and lowering the cost of borrowing. The way we do that is we have our flexibility in our portfolio, and what that allows us to do. And one thing we do not do is anticipate what the market's going to do. Okay, we'll react to it. We don't plan for it or anticipate something's going to happen. But the way we can deal with it, quite frankly, is we have the flexibility in our portfolio. So at the end of the day, if the market is really, really bad for the district, we will probably not do any refinancing or any of that stuff. The only time we will issue debt in a bad market is when we have to, and the only time we have to is when we build projects. Okay, and then we have enough flexibility where we can recover from that rather quickly. So being able to move our transactions or not even do those transactions, like in this case, the refunding opportunities, that's how we deal with those issues, specifically to your question.
Because I was thinking that does impact our ability to build.
And the market has been choppy. It really has been choppy here lately.
One other thing that I'd add is that in a recession, you wouldn't necessarily have a rapidly rising rate environment, right? So recessions don't all create those kinds of environments. And so what we've actually seen more recently is we saw through the end of last year and the start of this year, rising rates, and at some points relatively fast considering what's happened in the last 15 years. But now we've seen those rates level off and actually even decline. So the market, at least in the short term, and as David said, we're not in the business of trying to predict the market or, you know, deal with those kinds of issues. But the market right now is really favorable, which is why, to that other slide where he was saying the number we have in there is a little larger than our planning number. If the market stays favorable, you might be able to issue debt at a very, very favorable rate.
There's just a lot of scary predictions that are out there, and I just wanted to make sure that we were fluid enough where we would be able to protect ourselves if we needed
It's
to.
absolutely the reason we asked the board to consider these parameter orders in October, because it sets us up for that flexibility as we go through the rest of the year. And as the FA was telling the Finance Committee earlier today, this staff years and years and years ago and this board was a real leader in that, right, around offering that flexibility so that the district can be in a position to react to market conditions in the way that is the most favorable to the school district. We are going to have to build projects, right? And we have to issue debt in order to build those projects. But one of the other things that we know is that we've got two mechanisms available to us to essentially self-fund. We can go out and borrow at low rates if it's favorable to us in order to build projects without issuing debt. And the other thing we can do is we can borrow from our own general fund balance, right? Which we've done for years and years in this district because of the financial management we've had. So I think we're in about the best position we can be with regard to market fluctuation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lopez?
No, I was just punching in before he finishes.
Oh, okay.
After he finishes.
Okay.
Pre-punch.
Yep.
Pre-punch. Okay.
Okay, so on the current refunding opportunities, what we look at here are issues that become current, eligible for current refunding, and what I mean by that is there's a call date on the debt that's issued, and as long as you're within 90 days of that call date, that you can have a current refunding. We typically don't look at refunding or refinancing any of the debt outside of those conditions. So we have three issues that fall in that particular area. We have 2010 and 2011. You can see the par value of those amounts. And then we also have a 2003B VRDO that was converted to a fixed rate, and that one's at $20,600,000. Now, the first two, we anticipate having a transaction or queuing up a transaction. We are in the works for a November. And again, we're setting up the flexibility in case it's a little too choppy for us, but you can see that that one's already rolling. So the total of that is about par values $94.8 million. And then we look at our remarketing opportunities. You know, we have a series of those variable rate bonds, so we have two of those, typically two of those coming up each year for what is termed a reset date. We have a 2011 series at $52.4 million, and then we have a 2017 series at $100 million. I expect that 52.4 is probably going to be churned into another transaction where we combine some amounts, and the 100 will probably end up remarketing that one by itself. But you can see the total there at 152,425. So we identify all of our opportunities in the slide changer changes to the next slide. And so we lead right into our parameter orders that you see.
Monica, you have our permission to come down here and kick them.
Oh, I'm sure she'll get even. So what we do is we develop the parameter orders. So what you'll see is 4 parameter orders. You can see those items BC, and that should be DE. This is what happens when you do a cut and paste or a copy and paste. But anyway, it's BCDE. So our fixed rate issue and our variable rate issues, that will include all of our identified new money, refunding, and that's going to be item B and C. And then on our variable rates, those 2 variable rate bonds, we do have to do separate remarketing orders, so you'll see those as D and E. The remarketing of 11 and Series 2017. So now you know where we get all those parameter orders. So with that, I am just going to recommend item by item consideration and approval of each one of these parameter orders. So with that, number 12B fixed rate, I would recommend approval of that order as presented.
Okay, Mr. Lopez?
Madam President, this was again discussed, all of these were discussed in the Finance Committee meeting today, so with that, I move that unless the board has any other comments or questions, I would move that the Board of Trustees adopt an order authorizing the issuance of Northside Independent School District's unlimited tax building and/or refunding bonds in one or more series by delegated sale.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Linda, I did.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, item B has been passed. Now, item C?
Item C is the variable rate issue. Again, that will include all the items. I would recommend approval as presented.
Mr. Lopez, did you have any more comments on item B?
No, unless anybody else has any. I move that the Board of Trustees adopt an order authorizing the issuance of Northside Independent School District's variable rate, unlimited tax school building and/or refunding bonds in one or more series as delegated by sale.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, item C has been passed. Item D.
Item D is the remarketing of Series 2011. Would recommend approval as presented.
Mr. Lopez?
Madam President, again, this was all discussed. Unless anybody else has any other questions, I move that the Board of Trustees adopt the order authorizing the remarketing Northside Independent School District's variable rate unlimited tax refunding bond Series 2011 by delegated sale.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, item D has been passed. Item E.
Item E.
Yes, please.
Item E is the remarketing parameter order for the remarketing of Series 2017. We would recommend approval.
Okay, Mr. Lopez?
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt an order authorizing the remarketing of Northside Independent School District's variable rate unlimited tax school building bond Series 2017 by delegated sale.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, item E has been passed, and we will move, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Assolini,
you.
by the way, and staff, and we'll move to Human Resources.
Good evening, Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, members of the board. I'm Patty Hill, the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. And to give a short presentation on property and boiler machinery insurance is our Director of Risk Management, Debbie Glass.
Good evening, Dr. Woods, Dr. Harrell, members of the board.
She'll be back.
Tonight, we seek your approval on our property insurance renewal. I believe all of you have this information in front of you. An RFP was requested for property, boiler, and machinery insurance, which expires November the 16th, 2019. Currently, our annual premium is $2,544,252. That also reflects a 1% wind and hail deductible per location with a maximum deductible of $2.5 million per occurrence. Conditions that affect renewal pricing include NISD's 2016 hailstorm claim, valued at approximately $70 million that is currently still open. The recent wind, hail, flood storms throughout the state of Texas, as well as other catastrophic global weather-related events, along with the property market's current state. Texas was the top state in hail loss claims from 2016 through 2018, with approximately 811,000 hail claims reported. The market was researched, and the incumbent quoted four options that included wind and hail deductibles ranging from $2.5 million up to $7 million, and then all other deductibles for our insurance remains the same. Our recommendation is to remain with the incumbent vendor, Westchester, for option 1, which provides $400 million in coverage with a $5 million deductible on wind and hail per occurrence. All other coverage limits and deductibles remain the same as the expiring policy. Our annual premium would be $3,044,672. Questions?
Okay, I guess in Carol's absence, I'll assume this position. I don't see any. Melissa?
Yeah, Debbie, so my understanding is that Westchester is one of the commercial carriers within Chubb.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So, and my specialty is the personal lines piece. I'm probably dangerous enough about commercial, no, enough to be dangerous on commercial, but there's a lot of other commercial carriers that have that same appetite for these kinds of, though I understand having the open hail claims hurts us. I'm sure that
Yes.
affects commercial the same as it does
absolutely.
on the personal side. But there's a lot of other, as I'm being more introduced to commercial within the scope of my job, that not necessarily would reach out on an RFP from a school district. So do we do we ever
Yes, ma'am.
go out and solicit those carriers and talk to them?
That's exactly what our brokers do, and Susan with McGriff is here. And so they go out to the market and they talk to all of these insurance companies that would take on someone as large as us and has much property as we have. And they talk about the pricing and so forth. And so when she came back with all this information, Westchester was the only one that quoted with what our needs are.
And there's other companies, there's other brokers besides that,
Well,
so who,
they have the opportunity to quote because it says in the RFP that, you can quote, and we had some interest.
so I guess my question is, when you go out and solicit other individuals for this, who have you been talking to? And do you go to other brokers, or have we just stayed with Westchester?
Yeah, come on up, Susan.
Because Westchester is the part of Chubb, so who,
Well, Westchester is one of the 15 carriers you have on your current program. They are the primary carrier. And so there are excess layers that go above them. We have both a lateral and a horizontal layer for your program, as presented to the council earlier.
can you send that to Dr. Woods, Debbie, so
And
that
we
I
also
would like to
sent
see
a
that?
marketing survey, just to let you know. We approached over 52 markets for your renewal. And so we have all of their responses with whether they would consider it or not. So that can also be provided to you as well.
That would be great.
Yeah.
To know that piece of it. I just would like to understand how it's layered.
Yeah, I actually, and we can send this
send
to
that
you
to you.
because we don't want to, it's just.
No, I know it's a lot, and it wouldn't
But
make,
it looks like
and the
this.
rest of the board probably wouldn't care about that
Yeah.
piece, but I would like to.
Absolutely, we'll get this to you.
I would like to, I would like to see that piece of it and who you have approached and,
They're going to be quite impressed.
Yeah. We do have all of that. We can get that for you.
okay. Thank you. I don't
Thank
think
you,
we have much options on this, and it's really hurting us with having the claim open on this.
Ma'am, thank
So,
you for
but I just
understanding.
think with that kind of a premium next year, as some of these close out, hopefully we'll have, more individuals that are interested. So we had no one else that wanted to bid on this at all, that wanted to quote on
Well,
this at all.
They did bid in what was their, as much
Area.
as they wanted to take on, I guess you'd say.
Mhm.
So we have, and you'll see it in the layers, you'll see that we had a lot of interest, but nobody wanted to do it all.
Right.
Because it's $400 million in coverage.
Right, I understand that, Brian,
That's
but
the
I'm
challenge.
just, because we reinsure our large risk all the time, so I would just like to understand
Yes, ma'am.
how that's set up with us.
Yeah, well, once you get the information and want to review it with us, please give us a call.
That'd be great, thank you. And
Yes,
just
ma'am.
a shout out to Debbie. If you guys ever need any help or to understand Northside benefits, she is absolutely wonderful and helps, and you have always been so gracious about trying to help employees, and I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Freeman, did you have a question?
Yeah, my question was, why did we only have one vendor that bid? So I think we've talked about that, but thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lopez, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that was what we had talked about already. So this was all discussed on the committee, so I would recommend that we approve the property and boiler machinery insurance as presented by staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those opposed, say aye.
Aye.
All those
Say
sorry.
that
All I know. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I was just seeing if everyone's awake.
Thank
All those
you, Carol.
opposed, say
Thought I
nay.
had taken a nap there. for a second.
No, sorry. All right, so item 13A has been passed, and we will
Thank you.
move right on.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You did.
And to administration with administrative boundary proposal for Wernley Elementary. Mr. Galindo.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, trustees. So next August of 2020, we will open elementary school number 80.
Number 80.
Number 80, Caroline Wernley
Wow.
Elementary. And so primarily to relieve Bolt, and this area, of course, is in the southeast corner of our district. And so here to present that proposal is Ms. Debbie McNerney, and I think she'll be assisted by Pam Garcia.
Thank
Ms.
you.
McNerney.
Dr. Woods, Dr. Harrell, and members of the board, we took a year off boundaries and we've returned.
Now, what's your name again?
From one Debbie to another Debbie.
Ever.
There you go.
You tell me I'm
She's
short.
No, it's just way up there.
Warrenly Elementary is located in the Arcadia Ridge subdivision. We'll show you the map in just a moment. Its address is 1881 Arcadia Path. You enter the subdivision, you just follow that road all the way back to the back of the subdivision as it exists currently. It's designed to be an 800 target enrollment school consistent with most of the recent schools we've built. Its property is designed to hold 6 portables should we need to utilize those in the future. It's scheduled to open in August as the 80th, and it's the last elementary school from bond 2014, so the 4th of those 4. As you're used to seeing, we're going to go over the goals, the details of the proposal, and then we'll look at the effects on the sending and receiving schools as we try to balance enrollment in this area of the district. If you'll take a look at the map, and I know you've got them on your screen as well, but this is actually the county line and is the district boundary line on the far west side of the map. The area to the south that you see in gray is not our district, so this also is the district boundary line at the far southwest corner of the district. This line right here actually forms Bolt, so this is the existing Bolt attendance area.
Looks
This-
like Louisiana.
This is
So
the,
all of that,
I'm sorry?
So all of that is currently, see, I just don't remember that boundary looking like that.
It
with
did.
gold.
It did. And we designed that on purpose. I'll kind of walk through a little bit. This is the Langley area, and all this area up here is the Stevens Ranch area. We had expected that to have been, it is being developed, but much further and much quicker than it has been. Has to do with the delay of the expansion of State Highway 211. That keeps getting pushed down the road. And so we've seen a delay here. So we actually, and this whole area here was vacant land, with the exception of this one subdivision that we'll talk about. The Sundance areas, you may remember when we designed the boundary for Bolt, we actually have, this is, what is the other one called?
Sundance Ridge and Sundance Trails.
Trails, thank you. The trails and ridge, and there's a large drainage area, floodplain area with walking trails in between, and those two communities struggled with us separating them. But we knew that long-term this area would be actually connected to the future Arcadia Ridge subdivision. So that was exactly the boundary when we did Bolt.
So let me ask you, because I do remember the discussion of 211 and the insurances, which you can't have guaranteed that. But there were assurances from staff at that time.
And that information came from,
That 211 was not going to be delayed, and that's why we should look at that.
that came
On
from Pape Dawson, who's the engineer working on it, as well as dealing with the county folks. We are good friends now with the individuals that are on that project management team, because we contact them regularly. Dr. Woods has had conversations. Naomi has been in meetings, and the current situation is all the environmental clearances were made on time as they expected several years ago. There is one property owner that's holding out in the acquisition phase, and that's put everything on a stall, and that's where that is currently. Their most recent information, they tell us they will begin construction second quarter of 2020 and complete second quarter of 21.
Okay, so hearing that, are we still comfortable with the second boundary, the, what do we call it? The additional boundary change?
Company. Yeah, so
Right,
I think if you can let us kind of go through the presentation, and let's look at the numbers, and we can come back and talk about that question and how that pertains and the adjustments we've made for what we know about 211. I think that maybe if we could come back and visit that in just a minute.
Okay, my question is really when 211 was delayed, why did we leave these schools so lopsided? And was there something that we needed to have done? Because I didn't realize that we were carrying Langley as low as we're carrying it, and that we've allowed Bolt to grow to the numbers that it did. So let's not even talk about what you're doing yet with Wernley. I'm just wondering at what point should we have looked at just an equaling boundary change between these two schools? Because we really allowed, I mean, a 600 student difference in these schools. And I don't know, it just
And
makes me
I-
question that. And I know that what you gave us was on the very best guess of what it was gonna happen.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm just wondering, what if we hadn't gotten the monies to do Warrenly? I mean, I'm just wondering if there's a process that we should look at to equalize numbers in schools when we see something like that happen versus waiting for the next school that's going to be built in that area
Sure.
to take care of it.
Sure, I hear that, and I think part of the situation, had we not passed the bond issue for or had we not had money to build Wernley, we would have had those conversations. We actually delayed the opening of this school 1 year because we'd had conversations with staff about pushing the timing of that school back a year because of the slower growth in that area. So we have had conversations about that. The solution would be the same that we're going to show you, because we are going to look at an associated boundary change, and the timing of when we did that, we could debate that. I agree with you on
I
that.
just think that when we have something like that happen, so that's
Sure.
maybe
The-
something
the-
instead of waiting.
The other thing, point very well taken, the other thing in this case is the growth in Bolt has been very rapid. So it's not been as lopsided for 3 years. Bolt has grown very, very quickly. And so that has happened very quickly as opposed to staying, we haven't had Bolt at over 1,000 for a
If you
long.
can give us some of those
Sure, I
figures,
can-
because
I
on
can-
this, it looks very lopsided.
Yes, ma'am, I'll be happy to provide that for you.
One other point to make, though, is that while equaling enrollment is a worthy goal, and you're going to see that play out in this presentation, we also have to remember that it's a goal of ours not to move kids twice at the same level, right, within the same grade span. And so that's another issue to consider and prioritize as equal, if not more than simply equaling boundaries.
To Dr. Wood's point, it would have been a second move within an elementary years had we done that earlier.
Brian, and I do agree and understand that, but I'm also looking from a taxpayer's perspective that we're opening schools with 400 kids. And that's concerning to me
I think-
as we go forward, that
Right.
we're
No, I
opening
get it.
400 student schools.
I think when you see this and the outcome of this change at the 5-year mark, you'll see the answer to how that works out really well.
So if we go back to the map, this is the Bolt attendance area. This is the Langley area. When you come down here, this is actually Mora that's located down here, and this area is Leek, which is over here. So the areas we're going to focus on for this presentation is the Langley and Bolt area. Wernley is right here. This is Petrenko Road as it hits the county line and goes this direction back towards 1604. This is 211 going down towards State Highway 90, and what will eventually be the future State Highway 211. And we'll look at the individual neighborhoods in just a minute, but if you can see the Bolt numbers, on base day this year, they were at 1066. Their target enrollment is 800. Capacity with max portables is just under 1,200. And if you look at the projections going forward, you'll see that we would exceed their capacity with maximum portables at Bolt, which is why we're bringing you the boundary proposal. And though the 10-year figure actually grows to about 2,200 students. So you can see that's multiple elementary schools.
I know, and you and I have had this discussion on, you use 5 and 10. I'm not so worried about 10
Yes,
as
I know.
as I am right now.
But
so
I think, I agree with that. And
I
I think you'll
appreciate
see
that.
we're really going to focus on the 5-year and try to balance at 5 but I do show you the 10-year because of the massive amount of growth that will continue in this area to give you some context. If you look at the Langley numbers, the base day enrollment was just under 500 students this year. The target enrollment is 800, and their capacity with max portables is 1070. That just has to do with how many portables a facility can hold and how they're utilizing the classrooms. Their projected enrollment, and again, we've adjusted this year over year based on what we know, our best estimate within the Stevens Ranch area, grows to about 800 at the 10 years. So as we look at this, it's very clear Bolt needs relief, and we have some available capacity at Langley. We want to address that.
Debbie, excuse me, Mr. Lopez, did you have a question?
No, ma'am. I'm sorry, I may
Oh,
have hit.
okay.
So as you just alluded to, the goal here is to provide the relief to Bolt before we run out of and exceed their max capacity, and balance enrollment between Wernley, the new school, Langley, and Bolt. And the challenge especially here is, as you saw in the map, we're two sides against our district boundary, so you can't go out and grab from other areas, and we're not going to come back in the short term. So we want to make sure the decisions we make now will do exactly what your concern was, Mrs. Chumley, and balance that enrollment going forward between those schools. In this proposal, the area, and we'll look at the neighborhoods in just a minute, but the area in the kind of orange peach color in this proposal would be the recommended area that would come out of Bolt and go into Wernley. And then we're going to also look at an associated boundary change from Bolt into Langley. And if you'll go to the next slide. We're going to first talk about the boundary for Wernley. The areas, obviously, where the school is located, number one on your map is Arcadia Ridge, so that's the subdivision where the school is. The main entrance is right here. Currently, that's the only entrance in. Come straight back here, and Wernley is located right here. Area number two is the one we were discussing just a minute ago, Sundance Ridge, and those folks, those streets, sure enough, just as we had told the community, those connect. And you can traverse right between those two neighborhoods. You wouldn't realize, except for the color of the pavement changes. The houses look slightly different. Area number three, which is located right down here, and I'll step back for just a minute. This is what's been known as the Texas Research Park, and what's happened is they've sold land in that area to fund startups and other types of things, and some of that area continues to build and be for sale for commercial, but some has gone into residential single family. So if you look at the areas here, numbers 3, 4, and 5, you enter Texas Research Park right here off Lambda Drive. And off to the left, number 3 is the Hidden Canyons at TRP, or Texas Research Park. Number 4 is known as Hidden Bluffs at Texas Research Park. And number 5, the Woods at Texas Research Park. And all of those are currently under construction and will continue to develop over time. Area number 6 is kind of located at the north end of the Texas Research Park, and it's called Powell Village, and it's actually a multifamily community that used to house individuals who were taking kind of caretakers in that area or doing research and based in that area, so we had very, very small number of students. It's now, with the changes that have been made in the Texas Research Park, an independent multifamily community. It's not a huge community, and we still have very small numbers of children that live in that community. And then number 7 over here, right here off Petrenko, just next to the entrance of Arcadia Ridge. And actually, when we met with the building committee, we called that Petrenko Road multifamily because they had not given it a name. It now has a working name called Esperanza. And it's a 244-unit multifamily project. We were just out there yesterday. As a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago, I told you they were pouring slabs. They just started framing yesterday. So that multifamily is well under construction. If you go into the next slide. When you look at what the numbers of students we have projected from these areas, so the Sundance Ridge area, which is the small area, number 2 on your map, we project about 55 students next year, 49 at the 5-year and 48 at the 10-year. So it's a built-out existing community. Those are just the numbers that fluctuate as you have turnover in the community. You'll see the Arcadia Ridge area, and that includes the multifamily and things like that. The assumptions we've made about that is projected to have 242 students next year and grow to about 424 at the 5-year figure, and then just under 650 10 years out. If you drive that community right now, you'll see existing homes, you'll see big areas that have been completely cleared, and lots of construction going on, and different price point homes. And then the Hidden Canyons area around the Texas Research Park, we project 92 students, and that will grow to about 200 at the 5 years and about 327 at the 10 years. So again, as that area continues to grow. And that would leave the current projection, Bolt would open at about 412 students and be about just under 700 students at the 5-year figure, and then a little over 1,000 at the 10-year. And so to your point, we'll come back and talk about the 10-year. So the design while it would be desirable to open a school much larger, the reality is that those areas are large and will continue to grow. And we didn't want to move kids and then turn around and move them out again in a very short period of time.
And you think the 211 growth, when that's going to be done, won't negate, I mean, you
So what-
factored in what
what-
you're anticipating the growth will be in, once that 211
That is correct.
is
So,
finished.
for example, if you were to drive up behind Langley, you can go out towards into the Stevens Ranch area, and you'll see there's a couple little units that are under construction currently. And there have been. There was a unit right behind Langley that built and then stopped, and then they opened another unit. They have a little community center with a pool and whatnot. But it's extremely slow going, and the builders in those areas are a little bit skittish about putting too much product in there because Arcadia Ridge is the Redbird Ranch area is very popular. There are other areas that are going gangbusters in building right there, and they feel like the product and the price of land in Stevens Ranch is a little bit steep. You're not going to put an express home in there at this price point at this time is what they tell us. So the building in Stevens Ranch is slow and gradual, very slow and gradual. It is happening, but their efforts are focused in other areas where they're having much greater success with sales, and they'll kind of sit on that until that road begins, and then you bring more commercial up that way, et cetera, and then they'll expand.
Then you'll start. The one thing, Debbie, I'm not seeing that you normally have in here is the difference in relation to our economically disadvantaged among the schools.
We have not presented that.
No, but we've had, yeah, we have.
No, ma'am, we
Yeah,
have
we
not.
have. We've had that. We've had the different percentages in
We
relation
do feeder
to
percentages. We have not done, many years ago, we would present percentage of apartments when we had large apartment numbers, like when we did the Rawlinson boundary and things like that. But we have not looked at economically disadvantaged. And we actually tell parents that we're not looking at the price of your home. We're not looking at the income level. We're looking at numbers of kids, capacities at schools, and trying to balance enrollment and provide the best
I'm a pack rat.
facility.
So I'm going to go back because we did have percentages. We did do that.
I don't recall that.
Where we knew, because we had the discussion, and maybe it's, you're talking about it from apartment complex, and I'm thinking of it in a different manner, but we did talk about the impact that we were going to be doing with changes in some of the schools. And we talked about, because we've done that, like with McDermott, which is almost 100% apartment complexes, that we wanted to make sure that we didn't do that again.
And we have looked at that with apartment percentages, but
So
we have
maybe
not
that's
pulled EcoDust
okay.
data.
So the apartment percentages aren't in here as far as I can
Because there's
tell.
only the one apartment complex and it has single-digit numbers of students. So that's
Okay.
the reason we would not present anything like that. It's negligible in this case. And there are no other, there is a complex under construction and there may be future, but you don't have numbers of kids in those at this point in time. So we've not, only when we've had a large percentage have we brought that to you.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. If you go to the next slide. So when you look at what is the sending and the effect on sending and receiving schools, we just looked at the Bolt numbers the Wernley numbers that would open a little over 400 and be just about 700 at the 5-year figures. You can see the top line of the Bolt numbers I presented on the beginning slides, and the end result is Bolt next year would be projected to be about 753 students, so just under 800. So we're right at about that target enrollment. It would grow to just under 1,000 students at the 5-year figure, and then about 1,200 students at the 10-year figure. So we could take more out of Bolt and put it in Wernley, but we would move the problem then. Either way, we have too many kids in that piece of geography at that 5-year figure. So we felt like Wernley is in a good position to handle the growth that it would have at the 5-year figure, and if we had to, beyond that. Bolt, however, long-term is going to be the Redbird Ranch area. It is just a large area, and we knew that when we opened Bolt initially. We had said we will have to grab other areas, and then long-term, when we opened in the next school, we just need to long-term leave it to be Redbird Ranch. So we'll take a look now at the next slide. As I just said, we want to balance the enrollments, if you can go on. So we come back to the green area that I showed you on the first slide. So this is Petrenko Road right here.
It's kind of an awkward.
And we've taken everything south of Petrenko Road except this area that we're going to talk about, Petrenko Run. This area is all Redbird Ranch that's in Northside. Redbird Ranch actually goes into the Medina side as well. The additional areas up here that we anticipate will continue to develop, we would be in different versions of Redbird, but still part of Redbird. So we want to have room to handle that growth. As 211 builds out, there is some potential for some multifamilies, and if we needed to, we could cross the highway if we needed to with a multifamily to balance. But really, Bolt needs to be Redbird. So this Petrenko Run area has two entrances, right here and then right here. So leaving their subdivision, they would turn right and come here to go to Langley. And I'll show you in just a minute on an alternative considered. If they were going to travel to Wernley, they would have to leave going right and come all the way down here, enter the subdivision, and come all the way back here. So Langley is a closer solution than Wernley for the Petrenko Run area. All the areas here that are coming to Wernley are coming out this way and coming up. So we looked at where's the best place to put Petrenko Run for the long term, and the recommendation is that we would move that into Langley. This area right here is vacant land currently. It's been looked at for single family, and there's a variety of reasons that developers are not interested in that. So it currently is zoned commercial, and it could have some multifamily potential, and we've accounted for those in projections. Petrenko Run next year is projected to have 136 students, about 162 at 5 years, and you see that built out and kind of levels off at that point in time, about 156 students at the 10-year. So it'd be moving between about 140 and 160 kids over time out of Bolt and into Langley. So the Bolt numbers we looked at initially, and then we saw here we've about 800, about 1,000, and about 1,200. If we take that Petrenko Run out of Bolt and just leave Redbird Ranch as Bolt, a true neighborhood school, Bolt would be about 615 students next year, below its target enrollment of 800. But look at the 5-year figure. We're at 800 at the 5 years. And then it continues to have growth beyond that. So when you look across time, well, this next year, Bolt has more kids than Langley and Wernley. If you really look at that 5-year figure, you've got Bolt at about 800, Langley at about 700, and Wernley at about 700. We've done the very best we could to balance those enrollments. And we did not want to leave Petrenko Run in Bolt because we'd be back in a few years having to pull it out. So we felt like this is the optimal time to make the boundary changes. And again, we're at this district boundary on two sides of this geographically. We're not going to have another school in the short term coming here. So we wanted to do the best we could to set all 3 schools up. And to your point, Mrs. Chumley, we are making assumptions about 211 and things like that and timing. So if you balance the enrollment between the schools, it puts you in the best position for those out years, no matter what happens with development, to be able to hold kids as best we can. Go to the next slide. So the typical slides we review with you, we're not splitting any neighborhoods. We have taken into account all the information we have from developers and confidential information and our best assumptions. As far as alternatives, and I mentioned we considered moving Petrenko Run, into Wernley. But due to the anticipated growth that we're going to have in that Texas Research Park area and in Arcadia Ridge, Wernley would exceed its target enrollment as well. So it's no matter where we leave it, if we leave it at Bolt or if we move that area into Wernley, we're going to have a problem in the short term. If you look at the numbers, this is as proposed, where we balanced those 5-year numbers and came close to balancing the 10. If we moved Petrenko Run into Wernley, which is a further distance to travel than Langley, you would be 520 students at Langley and 861 at Wernley at the 5 years. So to your point that you brought up, we did not do a good job and balance the enrollment and use the capacity we have in all 3 schools. And then if you look what happens at the 10 years, you will have exceeded Wernley's capacity, and you'll have to have a boundary change, and you have barely hit that target at Langley. At Langley. So we really felt like in looking at these, even though we know moving from an existing school to another existing school is not a popular thing, we felt like it is the best plan and will be Petrenko Run's long-term home. And we'll come back and show you that on the map in just a minute. If you'll go on. The frequency of change, Dr. Woods brought that up. There will not be a second move for any of these students. They were all moved last in 15-16 when we opened Bolt. So even if they were in pre-K and had started kinder, they would be fifth grade and have the grandfather option. So no individual student will have been moved twice during their elementary career. And students, the same thing for the Bolt to Langley, the Petrenko Run area, the same thing. They were last moved in 2015-16. This area is all 100% clean feeder to Bernal Middle School, so that's not an issue to consider in this area. When we look at travel distances, the Petrenko Run area, the distance they would travel to Bolt is 0.62 miles. If you could go, Monica, back to the map, a couple slides back.
Debbie, real quick, I think
Yes.
Ms. Reed has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
That's okay. I was gonna do it
Wanna
after
wait
she's,
till after?
when
Okay.
she's
Okay.
finished.
The, when we talk about traveling again, these folks are gonna come out on Petrenko, and I suspect that you're gonna hear from the community, if I turn here and turn right, that's fine, but right here, there is a stoplight, and they go straight through and up to Bolt. That is what I'm telling you right now, they're gonna travel a longer distance, and it's inconvenient because I can go straight up through the stoplight. That's what we're gonna hear, we anticipate. But the reality is there's not room to leave them in the Bolt attendance area. So if you'll go back to the travel distance slide. On this slide, they're currently traveling 0.62 miles to get to Bolt, and they will travel 1.87 miles to get to Langley. If we were to look at Warrenly, in the alternative we considered and rejected, they would travel just over 3 miles. So we did choose the lesser distance, even though it's greater than what they are currently traveling. So an increase of a little over a mile. The Arcadia Ridge folks are traveling just under 3 miles to Bolt, and from the one point in the subdivision, they'll travel less than a mile. Sundance Ridge currently travels almost 3 miles to Bolt, and they'll travel 1.28 miles, so they have an improved travel distance, and actually won't have to get on Petrenko at all, because they can traverse through the neighborhood. And then the Hidden Canyons at Texas Research Park, currently, it's pretty much a wash. It's 2.8 miles to one school and 2.9 miles to the other school. So it's kind of a wash as far as we're concerned in that category. The grandfather clause per the board is that incoming fifth graders will have the option to exercise that grandfather and remain at their school. The parents are responsible for transportation, and younger siblings are not included in that. It's just those fifth graders. As far as transportation goes, the students that are in the proposed area from Bolt to Wernley are all currently provided transportation to Bolt. And the Arcadia Ridge subdivision and the Sundance Ridge area, pending the completion of adequate sidewalks, will all be walkers to Wernley. So significantly different as far as transportation goes. And we were just out there. Most of those areas will be able to walk right now. Some, it depends on when they complete the sidewalks. Those houses are under construction, and as is typical, transportation will review that closer to the start of school. The area that we are recommending to move Petrenko Run from Bolt to Langley currently is eligible for transportation to Bolt, and they would remain eligible for transportation to Langley. That concludes the presentation. Go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Reed?
Yeah, we had this presentation at the policy meeting, and it's sometimes when you get to the further end of your borders, it becomes a little more complicated, is what I was thinking. I looked at it. But the interesting part that I saw was the very next morning, there was an announcement in the paper they're building an HEB on the corner there.
They are.
It
HEB
was just
actually
ironic.
owns property both north
Yeah.
and south of Petrenko.
Yeah. So it's obviously not an easy boundary change to make, but it's one that needs to be done, and I think you all have done a great job trying to figure it all out. So hopefully you all, I would make the motion that we approve this
Well, I
boundary
think
change as
we're
presented.
discussing, it's just discussion.
Information
Oh, it's
only
just
item.
discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. You mean we're gonna have to go through this again? No.
It's been a year, we got a break from this. We're actually scheduled for public hearing. We have letters ready to go and packets ready to mail. And the public hearing will be on Wednesday, November the 13th.
Oh, it's
At
coming up.
7
right away.
PM at Bernal Middle School. And then we are scheduled to bring that back with the School Boundary Advisory Committee to the full board at the November meeting the following week. And do you want to address what we're doing differently? In
Yeah, the only
communicating?
change, well, the change that we're making this year is, keeping up with the times with technology. We have reached out via email to all the families involved, as well as paper copy letters that we've sent. So we hope to capture as many of the folks as possible and give them the opportunity at the hearing to voice their opinion.
So that will all go out tomorrow, and Ray's office has worked with Barry's office, and they'll actually have an online way, kind of like a Google format, to provide their feedback if they choose to, not just in the written format. So we're trying to reach out to hopefully get a hold of more folks.
Okay, Ms. Freeman?
Yeah, I do have a question. So with the associated boundary change from Bolt to Langley,
Yes, ma'am.
are we going to have a separate presentation or something for those
So-
people regarding what Langley has? that-
Exactly. What we did in several schools ago, the last time we've done one of these is when we opened Cole and we moved students from Mireles and Hoffman into Hoffman. And we're going to mirror that presentation. So we don't bring to you the full presentation, but at the beginning, Mr. Galindo discusses the whole kind of SBAC process and the timeline and how that works. And then facilities goes over kind of their slides about the facility itself, and admin talks about how we form a PTA, et cetera. And then we go into slides, and we have picture of in this case, the Langley principal, and we have pictures of all the great things that go on, family night and whatever clubs they have. Monica's working with the campus to get, cool, fun fact pictures and things that go on. We talk about when the school was opened, all the things that they have that are similar to the school. They'll all have the after-school learning tree program, et cetera. So we do that prior to going into here. And administration will talk about that as well. And there will be opportunities, usually the principals have, when we've done these, set up kind of a meet the campus time where those folks can come and they have staff available and tour, and they try to invite them to some of the spring activities and things like that. That's if it's a carnival or whatever the school's having, to start that integration.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Chumley?
I just had two more and I'm done. So I know it's a 100% feeder to Burnell.
Yes.
But what is the split from Burnell to Brennan and Harlan?
Don't know that I brought that with me, but I will get that to you, because that area does split
Because that
between
is
the two.
something that we had talked about with
And
one,
that
I'm trying to think, it's been a long
The
time.
numbers have improved
but-
as we've had some of these areas growing, but I'll get that to you.
Yeah, because we had talked about it, because we didn't want to leave single digits at the middle school that were going
I'll bring
to a
that.
different high school.
Bring
So
that
if you would on that. Okay, and then just let me make sure I understand, because I see everything you're doing about that associated boundary change. But do the families that are part of that associated boundary change, they're getting the emails and the letters as well
and
to come to this, because we're doing the full
It-
presentation.
Exactly. In some
with-
cases, when we've done an associated boundary change between two schools, it
Haven't
makes
always
more
done
sense
that.
to have, well, it makes more sense to have two separate meetings, because they're not really related. We happen to be doing them in conjunction. This one, you really have to understand the whole thing. This is very similar to the Cole and then the associated boundary changes between Mireles and Hoffman. In order to understand the associated boundary change, you really need to understand the whole
Yeah, I'm really glad
presentation.
that
So we've invited them all to the
Yeah.
same meeting.
that you're doing it, and they're getting notified at the same
And
time.
They get a
as other
separate
people
letter.
being pulled
They're-
to Warnley.
They're getting a separate letter, so it addresses you currently are attending Bolt and your area is recommended to move to Langley, as opposed to your area is recommended to move to Wernley, but they all get the same maps, the same invitation to the public hearing, and we'll have that hearing all together at once.
I certainly see the need for it. I don't like weird looking boundaries, you know that, but I really like the Warnley boundary. I don't particularly care for the Langley one, and I am worried about what's gonna happen when 211 does finally get done.
We actually have money from a bond
That-
issue many
Oh, my
times ago to open or to buy land for an elementary school at the north end of
Right.
Stevens Ranch. We called it Stevens Ranch Area Number 2 because Langley was area number 1. So we do have that, and facilities and our department continue to talk to the developers, et cetera. So when that comes, we'll be able to address that appropriately.
So Debbie, how much of what you're looking at, the 5 and 10 on Langley, is based on 211 being finished and those areas growing out?
Not a lot, it's further.
speculative sales.
See, I don't think 211, I don't think anyone's telling you the truth on when 211
I don't think they really,
going to be finished.
Development going on around Stevens Parkway, and Lennar bought a new pod there.
it's just
And
slower.
You see the name, they're saying Lennar Homes coming soon. And Lennar being more of a mainstream builder instead of custom builder, I think they will do well on sales.
And the assumptions that we make are in out years of those figures, not in the near term. There are real sales going on. If you drove out today, you would see actual homes under construction in Stevens Ranch, just small numbers, and they're not moving quickly.
Just not as quickly.
So the projected enrollment, or the sales we have in the projected enrollment in the near term are based on what we think is real, what's really happening. So are they going to sell 200 homes? No, they're not. But are they going to sell 10 or 20 or 30? Yes, we're seeing that. So
Okay.
that is real. When we move in the out years in those projections, and that's where those 10-year numbers, as we've all talked about, sometimes
Right.
we're right on and sometimes we're not. That's speculative. And so we have speculative information in those out years based on what we think. And I know Dr. Woods continues to work to try to assist us in getting the best information from a variety of sources we can about 211.
Well, if I had someone to bet on the number of times that they hit it right, I'd be betting on you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So public hearing, middle of the next month, and then back to the
November
board for
19th.
consideration at the November meeting.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Debbie. Thanks, Pam.
Mr. Galindo, request for maximum class size waivers.
Yes, ma'am. So tonight, we request for 26 waivers to bring us up to a
Wow.
total of one. Yes, we had 129 last month, so you can see the dramatic drop. Our average still is well below the 22 at 20.24, and this is by comparison to last year, 130. So we're only about 25 off from what we were last year. So the request is for 26 waivers.
Okay, and that is up for approval.
Correct.
Is there a motion?
I move approval of the waivers being requested.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, so class size waivers has been approved. We'll move to future agenda items. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. Quite a number of items in your folder. If you had indicated that you were attending the Go Public meeting on Friday, there's a ticket or something like that in there for that event. You obviously have future agenda items. We do have a sheet, a sign-up sheet for the January board recognition events, and we would love to be able to work on that and settle that, especially for the event that we hold at the campus. This year will be Harlan's first time in the rotation, so obviously the earlier we can get them a date, the better.
Is there, Brian, can we please not do it on the Gerlach Hog show day?
When is
Yes,
that?
do you know what, that's the 23rd?
That's the 23rd.
Okay.
Yeah, can we please not?
So,
Have it come in boots.
so let's
Yeah,
look
I
at,
smelled so bad
you
last
didn't.
year. It was
No, you
awful sitting at that table. I did. I smelled like,
I didn't sit by you, so.
no, I smelled like pig.
all right, so could we look at the 30th and have y'all check your calendars for the 30th?
Yeah, it's fine. So, if you'll just take the,
15th, we'll do the 30th.
30th is, anybody object to the 30th?
No, I'm good.
Looks good.
When is the NSBA AI? That's in February?
February 2nd through 4th.
Yeah, sounds
think.
right.
Yeah, I think
it's in
it's that
February, but
Sunday. I think it's that Sunday, so we should be okay with
Super Bowl
that.
weekend, whatever it is.
Advocacy Institute
Yeah.
is the second on a Sunday.
That's when it starts.
All right.
All right, so
So,
board dinner
okay on the 30th?
Everybody good?
Hearing good?
We'll double check with Bobby.
Yep, we'll double check with
text.
Bobby.
Yeah,
We're gonna
I'm-
shoot for the 30th.
I'm good.
Okay.
That'll work.
So that being said, what about the former trustee superintendent luncheon? Perhaps the 17th or the 24th?
Yeah, the 24th is fine. That's a
24th,
bye day.
even though it's in the same week, it's all right?
Yeah, but that's a bye day that day for the Star
So
Show, so.
24th? This is obviously a noon.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay,
There we are.
there we
So
go.
we'll go with, we'll run these by Mr. Blunt, but we'll go with, shoot for the 30th for the dinner at Harlan and the 24th for the luncheon here. All right?
Sounds great.
You've also got a red ribbon and Red Ribbon Week information, and you've got invitations to various events. These are notable events: 50th anniversary of Hausman, groundbreaking at Gom Road High School that you just talked about this evening, and the foundation's annual meeting are all in your folder. One other thing we wanted to ask is if anybody knows that they might not be here on the 19th, we would like to schedule a updated board photo, but obviously we need all of us here. So
November 19th?
November 19th is the date of the regular November meeting. Sound okay so far? Again, we'll check with Mr. Blunt.
Check with Bobby.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you,
I have a question.
ma'am.
We've informally talked about maybe having a mid-year retreat at some point in time, especially since everything is so chock full in the summer. And then there's another piece about superintendent evaluation where some of that, do we do that in December or January?
December.
So I wonder about splitting maybe that up too and talking about board superintendent goals at another time or a separate board retreat.
You mean superintendent evaluation?
Well, part of that, what goes with the superintendent evaluation, because sometimes that goes along at the end of a board meeting as well. So, and we can talk about maybe other agenda items, but any thoughts on?
That
So-
sounds good to me.
So keep it in December, though? Would it matter? Do we have?
The only thing I'd say is December is really
It's
tough
crazy.
to schedule an evening meeting. So I would
And
just
November's
caution
gonna
about
be
that.
tough.
We do have
November's gonna be
shorter.
November, Linda and I looked at November nights for something else today, and literally there are 0 on my calendar.
So if we're going to talk about the superintendent splitting that up, that's not going to work.
Well, unless you you chose to move that into the first half of January.
Well, remember what we had
It's a
done,
policy.
and I don't know if we've changed this, Brian, but remember we used to always kind of keep Tuesday and the second and the fourth. That the second Tuesday was supposed to be for those types of meetings that we needed to call. So what about the second Tuesday in November?
I think there's already conflicts. Linda and I were looking on it today.
You'll be in Washington.
Yep, there you go.
That won't work. You know what, we do need to look at moving us into the technology world of Skype meetings and things like that.
Remember, those have to be open meetings, though.
Do.
Just like any other posted meeting, they have to be open where folks can
Well, if
not
we
only
can-
view but interact online.
Maybe we can just look at what the possibilities are for something like that. I'm just thinking of when we do Twitter for the Ed Talks. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. But going back
The
to Karen's
legalities.
suggestion, were there any dates when you and Dr. Woods looked at it that, even if it's not a Tuesday, to entertain a
Met in November.
November or December?
We didn't look at
We could look
Oh,
at
you did.
December.
Or,
We haven't looked
like-
at December.
Worst case scenario,
Really
we've done
early.
board retreats on Saturday mornings.
Yeah. We used to
But
always
morning,
have
yeah, I know, but
Mornings where we're out of there by, before noon.
Why don't we look at some dates for December, and we'll get back with some options.
Or maybe the second Tuesday in,
We have second Tuesday in December as a board meeting on the 10th.
That's the regular meeting for December.
If
I thought-
we didn't
I
have
didn't realize
anything
that we
else, we
pushed
could
it
do
up
it
to the
before the
second
board
week.
meeting. What about before the board meeting, like at 4?
We've
thought
already
we
got a
always
committee
just-
meeting.
I thought we just
committee?
moved our meetings to like the third
Well,
Tuesday in the month. I didn't realize that we pushed it to the second, Brian, in December.
It's
Well,
the
this-
10th.
it's the 10th. The third weekend is the week before school's off. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, then look for January.
December meeting on the second one. We had to move the November one to the third one
Because the weeks,
because Thanksgiving's late.
yeah.
because he was going to be in
Oh,
Washington
and then that
Yeah.
too.
Right.
on the
How about if we just find a time in January?
January,
We'll look at
We
both
can, we
December
don't have
and
to do
January.
that tonight then.
No,
Yeah, we'll get some dates.
let us come up with some suggested options, and we'll get back.
Brian, I wanted to ask you about actually both the speakers both the citizens to be heard that we had tonight. Because we have had multiple discussions on the timepiece. So I guess just, if you could just, maybe that's, I don't know, if that's something in academics or if that could go just kind of an update of what.
You're talking about planning and prep time?
Right, because I know that we've talked about the PLC piece.
Sure.
And we've talked about other requirements, and then we also have the early release days, and then
We don't have early
we don't have
release
early
anymore.
release days. We have late start
Right.
days. We have late start days. So I guess I would just like to understand kind of the guidelines around
Sure.
that, that piece of it.
Right. We can talk about it in a committee.
Yeah, just if we could put that at academics, I would
Sure.
just like to understand, because we have lots of requirements that we need teachers to be at.
Yes.
And, living with a department chair, I hear about department chair meetings
Okay.
that we have. So I would just like to understand it
Okay.
a little bit better. And then just if you could just give us a short synopsis in a Friday letter.
Yeah, Leroy and I have already talked about it.
Of what's changed on the custodians, because a young woman kept referring to the change, that we've made some type of change in their schedule.
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
All right, if you'll just let us, so we understand it.
And you'll put it in Friday letter.
Yes.
And
That'll
this
work.
isn't a future agenda item, but I just was wondering, maybe in Friday letter, we could have, I know we get invited to things, but I would love to see all the, and I don't know if it's is important to anybody else, but all the plays and musicals. I know we do it around holiday time.
James usually does the schedule.
I know, but there's
Just
been
holidays,
plays.
but not the
We've
others.
missed, I've already missed 3 or 4 where people said, oh, it was great, and I'm going, oh, how do I hear about that? Because I can't go check 11 high school, I mean, I could, but it'd be nice if James could do it through the whole year, because I know he has it. Like, maybe it's a separate email to us about all the different, I mean, we got the band performances, but there's been plays and all kinds of things, and
We can
I'll
ask.
find out about it later on, and I'm sure he has a schedule. I
gotta
don't,
have
don't, don't
a
create
master's
one, but
schedule.
if he already has one, I'd love to see what's going on in the district and go to it.
We
Because
can
they're
ask.
usually in the evening when you can do that, and I'd rather do that than watch Game of Thrones. I guess, I don't know, that's a bad enough. Okay, hang on, here we go. So we are getting ready to the Board of Trustees on October 22nd, 2019, beginning at 9:55 PM. We'll convene in closed meeting in accordance with Texas Governmental Code, Sections 551.072 and 551.074. And we will have discussion on A sides, B, appointment of Director of Marketing, C, appointment of Vice Principal at Fernandez Elementary, D, appointment of Assistant Principal at Briscoe Middle School. Board of Trustees on October 22nd, 2019, beginning at 10:05. Will convene an open meeting. Action will take place on the following items. Sites, appointment of Vice Principal at Fernandez Elementary, appointment of Assistant Principal at Briscoe Middle School.
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we approve the administrative appointments as discussed in executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, we have new positions, and we will end this meeting at 10:06.